Up in a towering high-rise building, inside a sleek conference room, a man sat facing a woman. Just outside, the staff members. The pink-haired staffer was burning with curiosity about the woman inside. The black-haired staffer replied, "That's Xiao Hei's girlfriend, and she's here to dump him." The pink-haired staffer couldn't believe she was actually breaking up with him. "Right here at the company," she commented. "That woman is truly audacious." Inside the conference room, the woman bluntly told Xiao Hei that she simply couldn't continue living with a useless guy like him any longer. He asked her why she was so angry, when she sharply retorted that his pathetic appearance absolutely disgusted her. It left him utterly speechless. Then the woman declared that back then, she had agreed to be with him, simply because she recognized his cultivation potential. Even though he hadn't gotten into a prestigious cultivation university, he was at least a descendant of a declining cultivator family. But they had been together for quite some time now, and yet his pitiful lineage remained dormant. She accused him of wasting 3 months of her precious, beautiful youth and making her miss out on countless immortal opportunities. Xiao Hei felt utterly diminished as she laid into him. He replied that he had emptied his entire savings to shower her with so many spirit stones and all kinds of spiritual energy jewels. She only grew angrier when he mentioned that. She then scoffed that the trash he gave her had weak spiritual energy, which was utterly insignificant. She compared it to the earring given to her by young Master Lai, which was overflowing with potent spiritual energy. It could dispel evil, protect the body, and even enhance her beauty. The pink-haired staffer outside crushed the computer mouse in her hands. It immediately caught the woman's attention. The pink-haired staffer yelled, "You've gone way too far." The black-haired staffer tried to calm her down. She explained they hadn't hit their team's monthly KPIs yet, so there was no need to get involved in other people's business. Hay spoke, clarifying what he meant. The angry ex-girlfriend whirled towards him. He then told her to return everything he'd given her. Rage tore through her as she sprang from her chair, her body quaking with fury. She then cursed him to be a loser his whole life and to die a horrible death. With that, she bolted. Hay added that she could just mail the items to him if bringing them was inconvenient, but she angrily retorted that she would throw them into the river before giving them back to him. He asked, "Which river?" "Because it would be a shame to throw them away." The pink-haired staffer finds him interesting. The black-haired staffer told her to stop staring and warned that if she slacked off any longer, the manager would pop out of nowhere. And as if on cue, someone appeared behind her and asked what she was doing. It was the cultivation department manager, Zhang Jiqian. He asked if she'd finished her KPIs for the month. She hadn't answered yet. When Jiqian saw Hay sleeping, the pink-haired staffer explained his girlfriend had just left him, so he was a bit down, but he'd be fine in a bit. Ji Kyung didn't say anything else. Later that day, Hay sat on the edge of the roof. He glanced behind him when someone asked if he'd eaten lunch. It was Ji Kyung. He asked if Hay wasn't in a good mood. He then offered him a drink to relax. Hay was puzzled by his actions, because this old man usually glared at him. And now, out of the blue, he was being nice. After finishing the can, Hay was already drunk. He stood and spread his arms, yelling that his ex-girlfriend ate his food, drank his drinks, spent all his money, and even cheated on him. He yelled for her to die. He felt surprisingly good after that scream. He admitted he never expected the manager, who usually seemed so cold, to care so deeply about his subordinates. Then, a sudden wave of dizziness hit him. He realized the soda must have been spiked. He glanced down at the can, and it reflected the manager's devilish grin. He then fainted. A few hours later, his head felt incredibly heavy. When he finally opened his eyes, he found himself chained at the edge of a cliff. Someone noticed he was awake. It was Gikion. He asked if there had been some kind of mistake. Gikion was about to tell him what he was looking for, but he cut him off, declaring he wasn't into S&M. That irked Gikion, so he punched him, seeing that he found it funny. Gikion urged him to look carefully below. to get an idea of the dire situation he was in. He saw a pair of eyes staring at him from the dark pit below. It moved, and as it emerged, it revealed a massive dragon. Gikion presented the sacrifice to this divine dragon lord. He informed the dragon that, even if this useless one hadn't awakened yet, the body still possessed the spiritual root of an ancient lineage, which made him far more delicious than the sheep and pigs they used to bring. In exchange, the divine dragon granted him the promised condensation pill. Gikion got excited, anticipating his major breakthrough. He left to resume his cultivation. The divine dragon then asked him if he had any last words before his demise. He glared back and told the divine dragon it had terrible breath. He suggested brushing its teeth before eating him. The divine dragon bristled with anger at his insolence. It claimed to be the Lord of the Clouds, master of the 9 heavens, bearer of thunder and rain, and rider of the 4 seas. On top of that, it had spent 3,000 years in silent cultivation within the abyss, and 80,000 years roaming the 9 heavens. Eventually, it grew embarrassed for losing its composure. It was displeased to have been angered by a mere mortal. It grabbed him. Normally, it would swallow the sacrifice whole in one gulp, but it decided to give him a very special treatment by chewing him up bit by agonizing bit. He frantically yelled that it couldn't. It retorted that it was far too late to beg. But he quickly clarified that he had athlete's foot, which would make the dragon's breath even worse. He added it would make its breath utterly putrid, and the stench would really linger. It would be like morning breath, combined with his ex-girlfriend's stinky socks. The dragon roared, ordering him to shut up, and then it chomped down on him. Half of his body was instantly devoured, and he cried out that it hurt a bit. But his expression betrayed the immense pain he was enduring. Suddenly, a mysterious mark appeared on his hand. It had been severed as the dragon swallowed him. The forbidden art of his bloodline had been activated. First was the light of life and death, which inflicts a deadly mark on the enemy, cursing both them and the user to death. The enemy would suffer the same pain and damage as him, and as long as he didn't die from the curse, his body would continuously revive. The next skill was dual annihilation. Once this art was used, the bodies under the life and death curse would perish together, unless there was intervention from top level. Immortal magic, neither party had any chance of revival. This spell could not be blocked or externally interrupted. Suddenly, he was startled by a teacher's call, who interrogated him about the nonsense he'd been spouting when he opened his eyes. He was in a classroom. The teacher told him to recite the 7 arts of body refinement. Yet he'd been rambling about life and curses. The teacher wondered if he'd taken too much body refinement medicine, causing him to hallucinate. His classmates burst into laughter at his expense. Meanwhile, in the faculty room, a female teacher spoke to Professor Ian about the transfer student he'd accepted into his class. She assumed this student possessed impressive talent. Otherwise, someone with his high admission standards wouldn't accept them. He replied that the boy had other talents. In reality, he'd received a hefty sum. He thought the boy wouldn't even make it past the first. Still, it was the monthly exam. So, taking on the debt was the best option. The whole class saw him as completely useless. They just kept on laughing at him. Yet, he remained completely unbothered. Instead, he wondered what talent the heavens had truly blessed him with. He sat in the classroom, lost in deep thought. After a dragon brutally ended his life, he'd suddenly woken up in his bed, and his spiritual root, which had lain dormant for 20 years, had powerfully awakened. His ex-girlfriend's words were echoed in his head, reminding him of being the last descendant of a declining cultivator family. Suddenly, someone stepped onto his desk. This guy immediately tried to intimidate him and lecture him about the so-called rules of the class. He demanded that our hero hand over at least 1 bottle of body refinement pills, 1 bottle of pei-yuan pills, and 1 dose of Gubin potion all once a week. Their classmates watched as Jubei educated another newbie. To them, it was just another show worth watching. Our hero questioned why he should give him anything at all and why he was even stepping on his desk. Jubei arrogantly claimed it was his territory, so he'd step on it if he wanted to. Besides, he usually just jumps down from there, unlike those pathetic weaklings who only use the stairs. Before leaving, he threatened that if our hero didn't deliver the goods by the end of class that afternoon, he'd tie him to the school's front light pole to publicly shame him. Our hero watched his feet step out the window. Then a mischievous thought crossed his mind. Our boy suddenly slapped this bully's leg, causing him to fall awkwardly, landing face first. What a truly satisfying scene. His classmates gawked at him from their classroom window. They couldn't believe it. He had slammed face first onto the ground. Still, they weren't too worried, since he practiced the 100-fold refined steel technique, so they fully expected that he wouldn't actually die from a fall like that. Some felt a little bad, though, as if he died, they'd all rank up. He remained on the ground for a few minutes, and when he finally got up, he told our hero not to leave, because he was going to break his legs. Hay's green-haired classmate, sitting across from him, warned him he was screwed because Jabei was a notorious class bully and had never been beaten before. Plus, his family was a powerful, influential academic cultivation clan in the city, and his body refinement technique had reached an insane level. He also shared that the last student who dared to cross Jabei had his entire family utterly broken and destroyed. He warned Hay he could run, but he certainly couldn't hide. He also gave him a tip: avoid Gucci Alley after class, as that's where they usually wait to ambush people. However, that path was completely unavoidable. On Hay's way home later that dusk, Hay saw the sign for Gucci Alley nearby. 3 men were waiting there. One of them asked their boss, Jabei, if it was truly necessary for all 3 of them to deal with some trashy transfer student. The other guy replied that the boss could crush that trash with just one hand, but it would be too lowly for him to do it personally. So the lackeys would handle it. Jabei expected. The little bastard was probably trembling with fear, trying to figure out how to avoid the alley. But it doesn't matter, because I've got people in every direction, so he can't escape. The bald lackey gave him a thumbs up, complimenting his meticulous planning. Unexpectedly, Hay showed up, asking them, "Who told you I was going to hide?" The bald guy spun around and saw Hay approaching. They couldn't believe that. He just walked right into their trap. They assumed, since he couldn't escape anyway, he just decided to obediently accept death. Jabei saw this kid wasn't scared at all. He grew curious about what he was planning. He started thinking he could be the extremely rare type who hides their true strength and pretends to be weak to launch a surprise attack. Hay then called them cowards for not even daring to corner someone at the school gate. Instead, they picked a far-out alley just to ambush someone. He complained it took a lot of effort to get there. He goaded them, daring them to attack. And one of the lackeys couldn't resist the bait. He landed a powerful kick, sending Hay crashing into a wall. The impact left a massive, gaping dent. They certainly hadn't expected him to be so feeble, especially after his earlier arrogant display. Jubei realized he was just a rookie after all, meaning his earlier concerns were overblown. Hay lay sprawled on the ground, his face a bloody mess. The bully swaggered closer, informing him that was no ordinary kick, but a blow from the 5th level of body refinement. Hay's internal organs were now severely damaged, and he wouldn't survive much longer. Hay, despite his pitiful condition, scoffed that it hadn't hurt him in the slightest. He couldn't even call that a 5th level refinement, since it was as soft and pathetic as some loser who jerked off hundreds of times. The bully, utterly enraged, exploded. He couldn't wait for Hay to take his last breath. He wanted to bash Hay's head in with his kicks. Blood splattered everywhere, leaving him bewildered. Jabei and the bald man watched in utter horror as his leg flew right past them. Then he collapsed, screaming at the top of his lungs. His severed leg continued to gush blood, while Hay cackled at him for losing a limb. Unexpectedly, a mysterious woman materialized. Instantly, she stood before Hay. Jabei couldn't fathom how she'd just appeared, seemingly in the blink of an eye. Even with the woman's back still to them, the bald man launched his assault. Jabei screamed at him not to use lethal moves here, or he'd obliterate the entire area. But he ignored him, unleashing his devastating attack, called Death by Purple Gold Club. The resulting blast ripped through the area, The moron had just annihilated all nearby residences. He figured his old man back home would absolutely lose it over this colossal mess. As the smoke and dust finally settled, the bald man stood frozen in disbelief. Even Jubai's jaw dropped, his eyes wide as saucers. The club had clearly struck the woman's head, yet she remained completely unscathed. Just moments before this scene unfolded, on a floating island beneath an ancient tree, stood the silver-haired woman and a majestic white crane. They were playing a game of Chinese checkers. The white crane asked the woman, "Lord Divine Dragon, why she always appeared in human form." Divine Dragon refused to follow the Immortal Palace's broken rules. She questioned why they always appeared in their original form. She declared that they would end up like the crane, who had a human body and a bird's head. The crane looked surprised, so she asked if it was offended. The crane clarified that it was because she was bleeding. She thought it was a joke, because the last time she bled was 100 years ago. She believed herself to be invincible. But to her surprise, blood gushed out. The crane panicked as it gushed harder. She immediately used a homeostasis spell, then quickly left the crane. Before she headed down to the mortal realm, the crane reminded her to report to the Immortal Palace. She flew at an incredible speed. A mark appeared on her hand, and upon scanning it using her divine sense, she learned that it was a death curse, and she couldn't dispel it even with her powers. She was aware that this death curse was tied to someone in the human world, and she must find that bastard. Back in the alley, a rectangular barrier was put up. Marks were drawn on the walls of it, and it covered the whole alley. Jubai was impressed, because she took a direct hit from a quasi-condensation realm attack without flinching. At the very moment of impact, she developed a defensive barrier, leaving the surrounding buildings completely unscathed. He could tell that the person's cultivation was far above him. Divine Dragon stated that she hadn't fought low-level cultivators in so long, that she had forgotten how weak they all were. She also considered that Jubai was weaker than when she first started. Jubai yelled at his guy to quickly get away from her, but before the bald guy could do anything, his body was blown into pieces. Jubai was horrified. His legs gave in, which made him fall on his butt. He asked how it happened, when he didn't even see her attacking. Panic seized him as he watched her stride closer, especially since his legs had already given out. He knew he was utterly doomed. Suddenly, he found himself being lifted into the air. She remarked that she was surprised to see someone she devoured come back to life. With that statement, he confirmed it. It was the dragon. She ordered him to hurry up and lift the curse from her, or he'd be dead meat. He replied that he had no idea how to lift it because of his response. He was slammed repeatedly into the ground. She'd done it with such powerful force that the ground beneath them shattered. She demanded he lift it. Jubai watched, terrified as she snapped, even targeting her own allies. Suddenly, she coughed up blood. It stained the ground. She realized that the harder she beat him, the more hurt she got, so it wasn't worth it. If this kept up, they'd fall into a boring loop. She decided to head back. First, to find a way to lift the curse herself, but he told her to stop. She noticed how he'd come back to life again. Internally, she complained about how shameless the curse was. He brought up how she'd eaten him like he was nothing, so he wanted a bit of compensation. He was the first one to ever say that to her. She asked what he wanted. He replied that he wanted to become immortal. She got annoyed at him. Then she asked what he would do if she refused. He threatened that if she didn't grant it, he'd soak himself in a pool of sulfuric acid and die over and over again, and she'd bleed like crazy with him. She was furious that he dared to blackmail her. She thought of just freezing him and locking him away, while she took her time to find a way to break the curse. Anyway, she had all the time in the world, but he had countermeasures for that situation. He taunted her to try it, which only angered her further. A shadow formed beneath her, releasing red flames. Because of that, she threw him the book, while telling him that reaching immortality in one step was impossible. The book was a basic cultivation manual to help him train at a measured pace. She remarked it would be perfect for someone talentless. Like him, while it couldn't grant immortality, it could at least secure him a spot at a top university, meaning he'd never have to worry about food or clothes again. The book's cover read, Advanced Payment of Skills, and from that title alone, he knew this technique had to be extraordinary. He agreed that enhancing his cultivation was indeed the only true path forward. In her mind, she scoffed, calling him an idiot. Nothing in this world comes for free. So until she could get rid of him for good, she drained every last bit of him dry. Coincidentally, he was plotting something similar. Meanwhile, Jabai was practically plastered to the wall, desperately trying to hide his existence. But he saw her glance his way. He knew this was his end, but she declared she couldn't be bothered to stomp on ants that weren't directly in her path. But he'd better forget everything that transpired here. He watched as she used her powers on him, making him scream that he didn't want to die. Then, suddenly, when he opened his eyes, the body cultivation instructor was yelling at him to restrain himself, all in the middle of the exam room. He was utterly bothered that he couldn't remember anything. From yesterday, his brain felt like a complete mess. He didn't even know what he was supposed to do that day. The instructor then announced it was the first monthly exam of the new semester, hoping they'd all do their best. Students languishing at the bottom of the rankings were in serious danger because the school would consider advising them to leave. The first body cultivation proficiency test had begun, and for the sake of their futures, he commanded them to charge. Wait, he didn't expect that. It would be the first week's monthly exam. Already, when the instructors hadn't taught a single thing in class these past few days, the green-haired guy beside him explained that this was just how senior year operates. Everything worth teaching was covered in the first 2 years, and they should have been taking extra prep classes. He had known, the green-haired guy elaborated, that all his effort was poured into extracurriculars. Senior year was all about acing exams, climbing the ranks, and showing off their skills. He suddenly realized he hadn't signed up for any prep classes. He'd be completely screwed for the upcoming exam. He then told his friend that his rank was about to take a serious hit. The student nervously asked why. That's when the green-haired guy dropped the bombshell that the idiotic transfer student hadn't even registered for cram school. They burst out laughing at the revelation. The green-haired guy then spotted Jabai and couldn't help but wonder how the vicious class bully had let Hay off the hook. Even Jabai himself was pondering the very same question. 2 of his henchmen had been mercilessly beaten, while another was left to bleed out. He just had this unsettling feeling that something truly terrifying had transpired. The first test was all about penetration power. A barrier spell had been cast on the field, allowing them to test their destructive force. The instructor called Jabai up to demonstrate how it was done. The instructor clearly held high hopes for him. Jabai threw the stick, and his attack was absolutely destructive. It penetrated through several layers with ease. The instructor was thrilled to announce that he had penetrated a 1-meter thick, 5-layer reinforced concrete wall. He had expected nothing less from him. The school's legendary body tempering prodigy, Jabai's level was nearly on par with his own. The girls in the class cheered wildly for him. He barely registered their excitement, since they had no idea what he was truly worried about. The green-haired guy exclaimed that it was incredibly impressive. He then asked if that result was actually good. The green-haired guy explained that Jabai was incredibly well known, since he was the only person in their entire class to be directly recommended to Hazoo Cultivation University, based solely on his body cultivation skills. He explained that this test truly reflects his explosive, destructive power, whether using body tempering or sway cultivation techniques. In the end, the score was simply determined by how many layers he manages to penetrate. Most people can only punch through 2 or 3 layers, especially in their first month of senior year. A 5-layer breakthrough was currently the top score by a long shot. Next up, the instructor called out Wu Fei's name. That's right, it was our pal, the big guy from earlier. He took a confident step and launched the ball. It easily reached the first layer, but then it got completely stuck. He desperately willed it forward, and miraculously, it broke through He cheered, ecstatic to have finally passed the test. Next, the instructor summoned the mysterious transfer student. Secretly, he fumed that the former principal had allowed such an unworthy student into their class. He was about to call out. The green-haired guy fully expected Hei to fail miserably. If he couldn't even break through a single layer, he'd be advised to simply leave the academy. Since this might be their final interaction, he offered a dismissive good luck. Hei focused his power intensely, his eyes glowing crimson. The instructor watched him approach, completely empty-handed. He couldn't resist a sneering mockery. He declared they now had a true prodigy among them, one who could conjure power from thin air. A wave of uproarious laughter filled the room. Jibai seconded this, adding that with such a hidden dragon, the teacher's senior position was surely guaranteed. This only fueled the class's laughter, making it louder still. But to everyone's absolute shock, Hei materialized an energy ball. Hei then swiftly took his stance, ready to launch it. He raised the ball high and unleashed a powerful throw. It shot forth like a bolt of lightning, effortlessly tearing through the walls. The instructor, aghast, couldn't fathom that Hei had truly penetrated those immensely reinforced walls. A chilling fear gripped him. What if it even pierced the academy's powerful protective barrier? But just as it reached the final wall, it abruptly vanished. He breathed a sigh of relief, realizing it had expended all its power. Even then, though, it had absolutely shattered the record for their entire year's class. And it was his very first time witnessing such palm lightning. He could clearly discern that with the sheer explosive force contained within that lightning, Hei's cultivation grade and body tempering must be exceptionally high to master both body and chi cultivation to such an incredible degree. He declared the kid nothing short of a heavenly genius. Suddenly, the girls all flocked around Hei, exclaiming how ordinary he looked just moments before. But now, he'd become incredibly handsome. One of them gushed that his talent rivaled even the legendary geniuses of the past, with no prior indication. But now, they could tell he was connected to a major sect. The green-haired guy knew he was totally doomed. He'd laughed way too loudly earlier. Later that day, he looked incredibly nervous. He asked what on earth had happened to him, because he looked 50 years older. The guy explained he'd been blinded earlier, and told him that if he ever needed anything, he just had to say the word. He said goodbye, claiming he was in a hurry, and was gone in a flash. The green-haired guy was utterly amazed at how he rushed back to the train. He realized that even outstanding people worked harder than him. He ran as fast as his legs could carry him. He was so incredibly annoyed. He just confirmed that the stinking, rotten dragon had truly evil intentions. She'd slipped him a ticking time bomb. This crappy manual instructed him to practice the black nether palm lightning and make up for lost time. If he didn't finish on time, harsh penalties would apply, such as deductions from his cultivation and a weakening of his bloodline. This would mean major prohibitions. His timer read 11 hours, 5 minutes, and 56 seconds. Inside Hei's room, he frantically rummaged through the shelves, looking for a skill book. It was one he bought online, but back then, he couldn't understand it at all, so he'd skip to the last few pages. He was dying to know the initial cultivation steps. He couldn't order it again, because the fastest it would arrive was the next day, which would definitely be too late. Then he thought of just buying the ebook. He got too loud when he saw how expensive it was. His downstairs neighbors complained about his yelling, because they had to sleep early for their cultivation. The first time he bought the book, he'd emptied his pockets, spending tens of thousands. To his utter surprise, the price had already skyrocketed that much. At this point, he only had 8 left. He was running out of time, and if he didn't place the order at once, a whole night might not even be enough for this training. But he was already racking up quite a few expenses, like the 50,000 he gave to the old principal. He still ended up buying it for 200,000 won, bringing his account balance down to 3,372.29 on. Then he headed to the mountains, where he practiced the basic breathing technique. With 3 minutes left, he focused on spiritual energy activation. The last minute was dedicated to practicing his moves. He caused several explosions in the forest, leaving craters behind. As he blasted through trees and rocks, he completed the cultivation process, before the final 32 seconds even ran out. Once he was done, he confidently declared it was too easy. He did not expect to suddenly feel dizzy and pass out. Meanwhile, on the floating island, specifically within the bathhouse, thick steam enveloped the area. The divine dragon was happily taking a shower when suddenly blood gushed from her back and stained the bathwater red. She grumbled about the immortal she just lost. After she had just finished making it, she peered at him through the water and realized he had overexerted himself during cultivation, completing the process, and suddenly died. She instantly called him useless. She had only placed a slight restriction during the completion process, and it was already enough to knock him out. She had no choice but to heal him. 1 week ago, on the first day of their senior year, Jibai ranked in the top 10 of the class placement test. The results were proudly displayed on a bulletin board. He boasted that he'd made it into the top 10 of the elite class, purely through body tempering alone. This made him look down on all the other top students. Just then, a girl beside him suddenly shouted, which completely startled him. She saw that Fatty wasn't at the very bottom anymore. Hay's name was now there, right at the bottom. They had never even heard of him before, so they knew he had to be a transfer student. Jibai was eager to show the newbie just how tough things got around there. In the present, Jibai saw that Hay had jumped 10 ranks. Last we left off, during the individual test, our boy Hay, now at rank 33, got a call from one of his lackeys. As the test was about to kick off, inside the gym, a student stood frozen in fear. A crushing palm strike split his face open, blood gushing out. It was a devastating, earth-shattering blow, sending him sprawling with a sickening neck snap. The instructor urgently called a medic, demanding they hurry to the infirmary, hoping the kid could still be saved by Dr. Song's legendary miracle hands. Hay turned to the green-haired student and asked, "Just what kind of test is this?" The student clarified that it was a test of palm, strength, and impact resistance. And unlike last time's penetration test, this was Jibai's moment to shine, particularly his legendary iron-tempered steel technique, a technique that, rumor has it, no one in their entire grade has ever breached. Jibai squared off against the strongest palm strength student of the year, Zhao Yukai. Jibai was chomping at the bit to prove his superiority, but Yukai was dead set on making Jibai pay for his cockiness. With a roar, he countered with his forged steel palm. The attack was utterly devastating. A massive dust cloud engulfed them both. Yukai confidently declared, "Iron-tempered steel is completely overrated." But then a shock registered on his face. When the dust cleared, Jibai was still standing, completely unharmed. Jibai scoffed at his technique. And then, with a single hit, Yukai was down for the count. The instructor quickly ordered someone to carry him to the infirmary. Next, he summoned the student named Wu. But Jibai interjected, suggesting they call Hay first. Hay was caught off guard by the mention of open source and patented cultivation methods. His classmate explained cultivation methods fall into those two categories. That's basic common sense. It makes me wonder which school you attended. 4th 10th to 11th grade. Hay responded, Municipal number 3 high school. Ah, I see. No wonder you're missing such foundational knowledge. That's just a regular, non-cultivator high school. The green-haired student elaborated. To him that open source cultivation methods were all publicly available, and anyone could practice them. Patented cultivation methods, however, were registered with the immortal cultivation patent bureau, so only the patent holder or authorized individuals could practice them. Unauthorized users of such methods could face severe legal consequences or even be exterminated, just like those two from earlier. Forged steel palm was open source, while 100 refined steel was patented. But ordinary cultivators can't easily break through those patented methods. Patented methods have higher thresholds and are more difficult. The instructor then administered basic maintenance, spells to patch up the ruined court. Then he called Hay to come down. Hay and Jibai stood face to face. Jibai could feel his heart racing every time he saw Hay. He couldn't understand why, especially since he'd only lost one individual test. But if he could beat him now, he could prove himself. Hay suggested they just hit each other. at the same time, and it irked Jabai. So he yelled at Hay not to get too arrogant. Hay used forged steel palm. Jabai wasn't impressed. Thinking Hay was trying to clash open source methods with him, he used 100 refined steel. The instructor watched intently. Their palms slammed into each other's faces. But Jabai was blown away, crashing hard. When he hit the wall, the impact left a deep dent and a body-shaped hole in the earth. The crowd was struck speechless, frozen in shock. The instructor didn't expect that. Hay's opening move was the open source, forged steel palm, but the moment it hit Jabai, it was secretly layered with 100 refined steel on top. Not to mention, the Zhang family's patented 100 refined steel has a high cultivation threshold and was notoriously difficult. It also made him wonder if Hay didn't fear the catastrophe from privately practicing a patented method. Hay then suggested to the teacher to send Jabai to the infirmary because he seemed to be stuck to the wall and couldn't climb down on his own. He was utterly baffled when the teacher didn't respond. When he spun around, the teacher was acting like a docile puppy. This teacher then questioned him about his master. He motioned for him to lean in closer. Then he whispered that his master was none other than the Dragon Lord. Suddenly, Jibai jolted awake in the infirmary. He instantly seethed, thinking of that bastard. Someone spoke up, right beside him, remarking that the bastard looked oddly familiar. It was none other than Ji Xian. He then scrutinized Hay's picture more closely, and mentioned he resembled someone he knew. Jibai promptly asked if he knew him. Gishian subtly hinted that he did. But internally, he pondered to himself. There's no way Hay could have survived. It made him wonder if the Dragon Lord had shown him mercy. He knew the next major exam would be in chemistry. He then asked Jibai what specific topic they'd be focusing on. Jibai replied that it would be poison making and rigorous toxin testing. With a devilish grin spreading across his face, Gishian playfully told him they were going to have a blast. All at a car junkyard. Jibai tirelessly practiced the forged steel, palm training until its absolute completion. He informed the boss that every single one of the scrap cars had been completely crushed. After that, the boss heartily praised him for a phenomenal job and promptly transferred the payment directly to his account. That boss hadn't acquired a scrap car crusher just to save money. So Jibai had the perfect chance to earn money while cultivating. The system then instructed him to complete his 100 refined steel training strikes. Soon, he had delivered 20 strikes, but had yet to receive any hits himself. With 20 hits remaining, he began to ponder, who could I possibly fight tonight to get those hits? Then, completely out of the blue, someone suddenly appeared and directly asked, "Are you Hay?" He quickly replied, "No, I am not." He tried to explain that the man had the wrong person, because his name was actually Injian. At that very moment, the teacher from class earlier let out a loud sneeze. He found it odd to suddenly catch a cold, especially since he was just making a slideshow. The man instantly yelled at him to stop pretending, declaring, "Because I know exactly who you are." Young Master Zhang had sent him to teach him a harsh lesson. This person was Zhang Zixuan, a Tier 9 spiritual attraction realm cultivator. He approached him, blurting out that he should have mentioned it sooner. He denied it, mistaking him for a debt collector, but he was clearly up for the challenge. Zixuan found it odd he showed no fear, even though Zixuan's cultivation was far superior. With his spiritual perception, he could tell he was, at most, just barely entering the spiritual attraction realm. This made him consider if his opponent was hiding his true power. Without a second thought, he punched him, sending him flying across the space. He charged again, thinking his foe was merely acting earlier, and it only took a single punch to expose him. But just as he was about to land a hit, he was caught off guard. His opponent stared at him, daring him to put more power into his next attack. The very forest erupted as they fought. He was hit again, immediately followed by a powerful kick. Even as he landed face down on the ground, a strange smile played on his lips, completely perplexing Zixuan. He was getting brutally beaten, his aura noticeably weakening, yet that creepy expression remained plastered on his face. Eventually, Zixuan decided to end the fight with an instant kill attack. The third sequence. His opponent received a powerful blow to his torso, sending him flying until he crashed against a massive boulder. He collapsed to his knees. Zishuan scoffed, commenting, "High schoolers these days are so weak. And yet, they still pretend to be tough." But his opponent hadn't moved, and when Zishuan checked, he realized he was rapidly healing. Zishuan was utterly surprised at the recovery speed. Not even a top-tier physician in the spiritual attraction realm could manage such a feat. He then hit him with a devastating final strike. The impact sent a powerful gust of wind ripping through them. But he had this creepy grin when he realized he'd received a beating. For 2020 already. It concluded his 100 refined steel training. He looked down, then suddenly grabbed Zishuan's leg. He then unleashed the black underworld palm thunder and slammed it right into his torso. But Zishuan swiftly blocked it with his bare palm. He scoffed, dismissing it as an entry-level spell. He retorted that he should hold on to it tight. He readied his other hand, preparing the next strike. Then, he unleashed the forged steel palm, immediately followed by 100 refined steel. Zishuan took a direct hit, the impact sending him soaring. The force was absolutely immense, sending him straight through a tree trunk. Eventually, he managed to regain his balance and steady himself. But he immediately coughed up a mouthful of blood. He could feel that most of the meridians in his body had been utterly shattered. He couldn't believe a mere high schooler, at the entry level of the spiritual attraction realm, could force him to channel energy just to heal. He vowed to beat Hei to death once he recovered. But suddenly, something else caught his attention. The lightning ball was still stuck to his hand. He panicked, frantically trying to throw it away, but it wouldn't come off. He was helpless until it finally exploded. Nothing was left of him but his shades. Hei picked them up and coolly put them on. The system then notified him that the enemy had been defeated, and he obtained a magical tool, the dynamic monocle. This monocle enhances dynamic vision, making it easier to track even the fastest moving objects. He was quite pleased with this unexpected reward. The very next day, the new rankings were posted. J.E.B.I. was clearly bothered that Hei was ranking up so quickly. He was already at the 18th rank. Adding insult to injury, the kid also took out the thugs he'd sent after him. A woman then called out to Hei, asking him for a secret for ranking up so fast. She offered to exchange it for some yuan nourishing pills. Little did they know, some other girls were eavesdropping. They quickly dubbed her Gao Fei. A total B asterisk TCH for her plan to trick him with a losing trade. Later on, class finally started. It was chemistry class, taught by teacher John Qingyan. And for today's lesson, they were to demonstrate their poison making and poison detection skills. In the future, when they entered dangerous careers, they would inevitably face tricks from co-workers, subordinates, bosses, and rivals alike. So, if they didn't want to suddenly drop dead on the job, she advised them to give it their absolute all on the exam. Each of them would be given several samples before the exam ended. They had to identify which one was poisonous. They were instructed to ingest the non-toxic ones, and their final grade would be based on both their detection, speed, and accuracy. If they could even name the poison, they'd earn extra credit. Jabai had already tampered with Hei's entire tray, with the help of his second brother. He fully expected Hei wouldn't even begin his dangerous career, because he was sure to die right here. With so many strong-smelling items mixed together, he knew they wouldn't be able to identify the poison by scent. The tray contained how-to-inia dumplings, stinky tofu, durians, and fermented bean juice. And if he was thinking of identifying the poison by other means, he still wouldn't be successful because the poison had been meticulously disguised. He had absolute faith in their family's poison master and was confident that not even the chemistry teacher himself would be able to detect it. The green-haired guy felt relieved to be in a field where he held the advantage. He immediately started sniffing, while Fatty dropped a chemical on the food. A girl, meanwhile, used lightning to detect the poison. Teacher Qing Yen watched her and was clearly impressed that she was still excellent at poison detection. She then walked over to Hei when she saw he was doing absolutely nothing, while everyone else had already started demonstrating their skills. Jabai overheard this and sneered, thinking there was nothing for Hei to do but sit there, clueless about which to pick. It wouldn't even matter what he ate, because he would die anyway. Hei, however, reached out for the food. Meanwhile, at the floating island, Divine Dragon was fishing, but she was also lost deep in thought. Ever since she became a god, things had gotten incredibly boring, leaving her with nothing to do but fish. But while she was just lounging around, her eyes and nose suddenly started to bleed. 5 minutes ago, Hei ate all the food on his tray. Teacher Qing Yin couldn't believe what he just did. She asked if he really knew what he was doing. He could die from that. She was relieved to have anticipated idiots like him and strictly controlled the dosage. She assured him that it wasn't lethal, but he should prepare for serious diarrhea. Shirbai grinned because that was just wishful thinking. He poisoned every single food item, and it was enough to kill someone 5 times over. He turned pale and bled through the eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. Then he dropped dead. Teacher Qing Yin took his pulse and announced his death. One of the students got worried that the school would make it to the headlines. The other student responded that it won't happen because it's not like he's from a major sect or a top scholar. Students dying in the senior year was quite common. The rank 19 student was pleased because he would easily climb the ranks, while teacher Qing Yin was concerned about how it will affect her promotion. Evaluation, she was furious at whoever dared to tamper with her exam. She thought of the damned P.E. teacher because he had been competing with her for the title. While she suspected him, Hei had recovered. She jumped to her feet when she learned that he was alive. In her entire career, it was the first time she encountered that. She couldn't believe that he fooled her. Hei reported that all 5 items were poisoned, including enteric dispersing powder. Some letters appeared on his palm. Then he stated that the last one was the air ending, poison. Shirbai couldn't believe it. He got nervous. He thought he was being thorough, even finding an expert at the condensation realm from their sect. He also had him investigated and found nothing. So it was a big puzzle on how a nameless nobody survived the poison of condensation realm experts. Later that day, in the lab, teacher Qing Yin inspected something on a petri dish. She imbued the fluid with her aura. It was Hei's blood sample, and her analysis revealed all his answers were spot on. She could tell the brain-dead P. Teacher couldn't have concocted that. This led her to believe it was done by a true poison master in the condensation realm. She even needed half the night to analyze it, and it made her think he was an absolute freak. Meanwhile, in the new Immortal bookstore, Hei diligently searched through the books. He'd never thought there'd be such a wild communication method. The divine dragon communicated with him through his palms, telling him it was his bloodlines. Forbidden technique. She called him dumb for not even knowing how to use it. She linked their health bars to use it, to contact each other during emergencies. Hei complained that encrypted communication like that hurts. He asked if there's another way for immortals to talk to mortals. It seemed like he thought gods had complete freedom. She pointed out that for humans, they were like strategic nukes. Every single move was under surveillance of the immortal palace. She already descended once on her own. So if she casually made contact with humans again, and the immortal palace found out, some immortals would definitely come after her. Hei then asked if she could reveal where the top tier treasures were. All she was allowed to share with him was already infused into the advance payment skills, so he just had to follow the instructions. Suddenly, his hands started bleeding. Someone saw it. It was the female staff member. She expected that. High schoolers were under immense pressure these days, but she couldn't believe one would self-harm right here in a bookstore, and she'd be the one cleaning up the blood again. Hei apologized and promised to clean the blood later. Then he brought up some questions about a few books. She asked him what kind of books. He shared that he's in senior year, and he wants to aim for the condensation realm. He asked for suggestions on some good prep books. There's still almost a year left until the college entrance exams, so she was a little surprised he was already preparing for the condensation realm. He then asked if the condensation realm was difficult. She doubted if he was truly a senior, since he lacked such basic knowledge. She explained that if he could break through to the condensation realm during the college entrance exam, he'd basically be guaranteed acceptance. If he achieved it all at once, he could even apply for direct recommendation. She then commented, "Kids these days have high ambitions, but no grounding." She gave him 3 best-selling books. If you can grasp them, it would be great. He chose the Condensation Realm Cultivation Guide. He brought it to the counter. It wasn't one of the staff's recommendations. So she was unimpressed he hadn't listened. He immediately scanned through it. The staff watched as he simply flipped to the last page of that complex book. In her head, she judged his logic to be totally backward. So he's hopeless. He read that. Breaking into the condensation realm requires full cultivation of either chi or body to level 10 plus, and the help of a condensation pill. The process may cause spiritual energy to rampage through his body, leading to serious injuries. Hence, he needed plenty of top-grade healing and foundation, stabilizing medicines. It was expensive and risky, and he could even die in the process. He concluded that he simply needed to prepare a condensation pill. At the Zhang estate, someone was yelling. Jabai scolded the condensation realm poison master for failing to kill a senior student. The man apologized and explained that something must have gone wrong. He begged for a second chance and promised that the kid would truly die. This time, Jabei's worries were mounting, especially with Hayes' scores now hitting the top 10 in class. He couldn't stand the thought of that rival succeeding. Not like this, not so easily. He declared that if Hayes wasn't dead within a week, he'd be the one losing his head. But a sudden, loud crash from the roof caught his attention. Unbeknownst to him, Hayes had broken through, sword in hand. Let's rewind a few moments before this confrontation. The Zhang residence was under notoriously tight security. A guard stationed on the second-floor balcony suddenly saw his colleague drop dead. He quickly grabbed his radio, ready to notify them of an intruder. But before he could even finish his sentence, he was struck down too. Hayes then effortlessly leaped onto the second-floor balcony. He swiftly dealt with the guards on the roof too. It was then he overheard Jabei giving the deadline for his death. He concentrated his raw power into his hand, punching a hole to drop down 2 floors. And the moment he reached Jabei, he drew his sword and plunged it into his shoulder. This arrogant bully had absolutely no idea he was messing with the wrong person. Imagine bullying the new student, and then suddenly, the next thing you know, you've nearly lost your life. A few inches closer to his heart, and it would have been over. But still, he foolishly tried to retaliate. Jabei unleashed his palm technique, aiming to push him away. In response, Hayes pulled out the sword and blocked the palm using it. The impact sent Jabei flying, smashing him through several walls, until he made a deep dent in the last wall. But then, a flurry of needles was suddenly hurled at Hayes. He skillfully blocked them all with his sword, though he was slightly caught off guard. When a man tried to strike him with a truly unique weapon, it was a staff with a metallic end that ingeniously closes and opens like a flower. Hayes blocked it with his sword, but the man had pushed a hidden button on the weapon, releasing a hidden blade that pointed straight to his eye. He moved a bit sideways, so it only scratched him. The man had to step back, momentarily stunned. This man instantly recognized the intruder as the very high school student who had gotten lucky and miraculously survived his poison. And ironically, he was just on his way to find him and approached him directly instead. He then revealed that the venom needle he'd released earlier was absolutely not to be taken lightly. He'd used his ancestral recipe, so its toxicity was in a league of its own. It meant sudden death for the brat. Hai's cheek bled, but he merely glared back, which gave the poison master an unsettling feeling. Then Hai was gone in a flash. He charged at Jabei, his sword aimed directly. He tried to stab him, but Jabei deftly evaded. Then, as he swung his sword, he sensed something amiss. Several needles were released, hurtling his way. They were from the poison master. He was offended that Hai had just ignored him. He was also utterly annoyed, since, with the potency of his poison, Hai should have already dropped dead. And yet the kid was still standing. Hai broke an item, then this guy told Jabei to run, promising to cover him with a curtain of needles. Hai watched as Jabei leaped through the window to escape. Jabei successfully made it out. Then, the poison master decided to demonstrate the power of his condensation realm. The needles that had punctured the wall released a green mist. Hai started coughing. He could tell the poison fog was far more intense. than the previous toxic. Laden needles. The poison's effects began to manifest on his skin, and he dropped dead. The poison master laughed out loud, mocking him for thinking he was immune to every poison, when, as it turns out, he couldn't withstand his ultimate finishing move. To his absolute surprise, a statue was cut in half. His eyes snapped open. He snatched his sword and slashed the poison master. At this point, the poison master knew he'd seriously messed up. Apparently, ever since, Divine Dragon used a clay avatar technique to divert damage. She no longer gets covered in blood every time something happens, but two had been destroyed right off the bat. This signaled to her that Hai had run into something tricky. She decided to check what was truly happening. She saw him fiercely slashing someone. The poison master couldn't believe a powerful realm cultivator like himself had actually been defeated by someone from the spiritual attraction realm. He bled too much, and when he checked, the man already had no pulse. He looted him, knowing the items, though useless to him, could be turned into cash. Meanwhile, Zabai was frantically roadside in the mountains, panting like crazy. He was utterly out of breath from running away, and had even forgotten his phone. He had to flag down a car and borrow one to call for backup. He was absolutely furious with that transfer student. Zabai couldn't believe he'd dare seek revenge against the Zhang family. Once he gathered the family's assassins, he vowed to kill him and wipe out his entire family. To his absolute surprise, he appeared and asked him, "Who are you going to kill?" He immediately attacked with his sword, but Zabai dodged. Then, Zabai used 100 refined steel to strengthen his body. He was cut on his arm, which bled, as he stepped back to create distance between them. But before he could steady his footing, an orb was thrown at his face and then exploded, which sent him tumbling down the cliff. He hit the ground with a powerful impact. He followed to end him. Zabai couldn't move, and tried to intimidate him by saying he was from the Zhang family. But he didn't care. He swiftly slashed his head off. He admitted that if it weren't for the Dragon King taking all the damage, he would have killed him several times over already. He couldn't believe that even at death's door, Zabai still used that same family background, intimidation routine. He burned the body and erased the evidence. And even if he didn't, he expected the Zhang family to link the death to him, whether they had proof or not. And he's still using the Zhang family's patented technique, so he knew that conflict wouldn't be avoided in the future. But he was satisfied that his revenge wasn't for nothing. Even though he rushed out, he still managed to snatch up some valuable stuff. They were the condensation pills, and he managed to get his hands on 3. He knew Jibai's brother had to offer sacrifices to the Dragon King, just to get a single one. He learned just how complicated the relationships among the disciples of the major sects were. He also snatched some gold, silver treasures, talismans, standard issue blades, and more. He planned to sell them all later. The system detected the word sell and promptly offered a sales system it thought he'd like. Ever since he learned about advanced payment skills, system-like pop-ups started appearing. He assumed it was all designed by that stinky dragon, and now it was even crazier, with the e-commerce platform's big data and how it communicated with him. Then, he realized he had to delete his browsing history fast. A wheel materialized right in front of him, with options like cultivation technique, magic artifact, and so on. So he clicked sell. The dynamic monocle, horizontal blade, poison lotus, gold bars, and all other junk were gone. His account was credited with 1,054,178 won. Then the system lit up. The heaven-opening blade was being sold for 1 million when he wasn't happy that everything was sold for just 1.05 million, and yet he was being asked 1 million for a single premium blade. He remembered similar quality artifacts outside, going for way cheaper. He claimed it was a robbery. It's not that he couldn't afford it. It simply wasn't worth it. He decided to check something else instead. There were pocket pants for 50,000 yuan. These were durable, tear-resistant pants. Both side pockets were spatial bags and could hold many items. He found this one pretty useful. He spent 100,000 yuan and was left with a remaining balance of 954,718 yuan. He checked out other items like the boiling blood, a premium item that costs 600,000 yuan. With this, the more blood he loses, the stronger his attacks become. There was also another cool item called Swift, a contact lens costing 50,000 yuan. It boosted dynamic vision by a whopping 50%, making it a cinch to track even the fastest objects. Next up was the anti-impact shirt, a bargain at 100,000 yuan. This T was tougher than he was, so he wouldn't fret about his clothes tearing in battle. Then came the grip shoes for 200,000 yuan. They featured super traction soles that, when activated with spiritual power, could adhere to any surface. The actual sticking power depended on the user's cultivation. In total, he splurged 950,000 yuan, leaving him with a measly 4,718 yuan balance. He cried, but it made the divine dragon smile. She was absolutely determined not to let the brat die easily, especially after he'd cast that blood curse on her. The Lord Dragon King was summoned. It was a cat, reporting they'd found a way to break the human's blood curse. She followed the cat to the altar. The cat reported that his bloodline wasn't anything special. His ancestors could only place blood curses on low realm. Demon beasts, those creatures, couldn't even withstand the transfer damage. His ancestors often died quickly in low-level fights because of it. That's why no one ever took an interest in his bloodline. He'd always been a nobody in the mortal world. She asked how he'd been able to cast a blood curse on her when she was a celestial, the Dragon King herself. The cat speculated it was because, when she descended to the mortal realm, the Celestial Emperor's restriction spell forcibly downgraded her cultivation to a very low realm. Plus, the boy's intents will to survive at that moment greatly increased the upper limit of his blood curse. However, his curse still depends on his own cultivation level. A cultivator of the spiritual attraction realm can only tap into a very small portion of her health bar. Once that part runs out, he'll die. The magic circle was nearly complete. The cat instructed her to step into the center of the formation. Magic circles formed above her head, and then she let out a cry, feeling immense pain, as something ripped itself from her body. Meanwhile, back on Earth, it was quiet, and Hay was in a deep slumber. The crimson thread had now entered Hay's body. She then realized the blood curse had manifested into a tangible form. She condensed her spiritual energy into her hand, aiming to sever it. But her efforts were abruptly interrupted when a knock echoed from her door. It was a messenger who relayed an invitation from the celestial minister. The cat felt confused, wondering why a talisman wasn't used for the message, and instead, a personal envoy had been dispatched. Divine Dragon remained on high alert, sensing this visitor did not harbor good intentions. Divine Dragon stood before the throne, but it sat completely empty. Suddenly, a voice asked if she desired to sit upon it. A man materialized on the right side of the throne. He informed her that the Celestial Emperor hadn't appeared in years, leaving the throne vacant for an eternity. He suggested there would be no harm in her sitting there. For a moment, she scoffed, pointing out how every immortal knew he was the one most eager to claim that seat. She warned him not to play such mind games with her, cutting straight to the business. Why had he summoned her? He commented she was still as hot-tempered as ever. Then, he finally revealed the reason for her summons. It concerned her application for promotion to High Immortal. It had been rejected. This enraged her, as back then she had given up her territory and subordinates, agreeing to join the Immortal Palace. It was precisely because he had promised she would be promoted to High Immortal after a mere 100 years. He explained that circumstances were now different, as countless minor immortals were applying for promotion. So if they approved her, based solely on a promise made centuries ago, the other immortals would object. He suggested she accumulate more merit and further boost her cultivation level. She vanished before he could even finish his sentence. The cat was shocked she was back so soon. She rocketed through the sky at incredible speed, and her expression made it crystal clear just how furious she was. The cat knew this wasn't good. She was nearly at the cliff when she finally landed. The impact triggered a massive explosion. and its force reverberated throughout the entire forest. The cat tumbled, landing headfirst on the rock. It cautiously asked if she was all right. She lay there amidst the shattered rocks, sarcastically replying that she felt perfectly fine, aside from feeling completely restrained. The cat couldn't possibly believe she was restrained. After she'd just shattered an entire mountain, her period of freedom was definitely over. So it was time for her to push that mule even harder. Meanwhile, back in the human realm's forest, Hay was deep in training, much to the annoyance of a nearby bird that couldn't get any sleep. Eventually, the system notified him that the spirit attracting breathing technique had been successfully completed. Now, his foundation for charging into the condensation realm was more solid than ever. With that accomplished, and after the advance payment to the condensation realm, all the elements should finally be in place, minus some essential follow-up cultivation. He activated his advanced cultivation. Condensation realm power surged through his body. The concentrated power shot straight up into the sky. Smoke and dust billowed, filling the entire area. Eventually, it cleared up and his eyes glowed a fierce red. With this condensation realm advancement prepaid, his body strength and mana, along with his max health points, had significantly increased. His divine sense was greatly enhanced, and his comprehension ability received a massive boost. He also unlocked exclusive condensation realm techniques, artifacts, and items. He was told to fulfill the conditions for the condensation realm, which were 1 condensation pill, 10 superior foundation stabilizing pills, 3 bottles of superior spiritual herb extract, and 10 layers of the spirit attracting realm. He was surprised that that was all it was, since he already had everything. That was easier than he expected. But then, of course, he jinxed himself. A sudden side quest popped up. It ordered him to clear this secret realm, all while suffering from the hemorrhage curse, and all within a strict time limit. After the mission, 30% of his cultivation and merit will be severely deducted as interest for his advance to the condensation realm, and delayed repayment meant compound interest. He had no clue where this demon cave even was. As if on cue, a sinister red glow appeared. A magic circle was forming right beneath him. He panicked, totally unprepared for this. As he plummeted, the 20-minute timer began. He grumbled about how ridiculously intense this was, especially since he was falling directly onto spikes. He focused his energy into his hands and feet, hoping to grip the wall and stop his fall. He slid at first, but managed to halt his descent, stopping just an inch before his rear hit a spike tip. That was unbelievably close. He nearly lost his life, even with his beefed-up health bar. Getting hurt still absolutely stung. Plus, he had no idea when the hemorrhage curse would strike. If he could help it, he'd definitely prefer to avoid injury. Suddenly, a metal arm lunged out at him. Luckily, he spotted it and swiftly dropped to evade. But as soon as he did, another spike emerged, which he instantly countered by slashing it in half. His speed, strength, and reflexes had all significantly improved. Although, he didn't exactly have the best knife for cutting iron. But after mobilizing some magic power, even a massive stone arm, thicker than a waist, could be severed with one swing. These were the incredible benefits of his improved basic cultivation. He then spotted a new incoming attack. He had to move in frantic zigzag motions, rocketing upwards, aiming to escape the pit. But a colossal hand suddenly blocked the exit. He was completely ambushed from both front and back. He unleashed his black nether fist and core thunder, smashing everything around him. After that furious assault, his timer read 17 minutes, 36 seconds remaining. A giant, human-shaped rock burst from the ground. Several more of them quickly showed up. They all looked just like solid rock, alongside a human-shaped warrior wielding a mighty hammer. He didn't have much time to deal with them, because of the strict time limit, and he began hemorrhaging severely. While he was still on his knees, the rock soldier raised its massive hammer. The rock soldier swung its hammer, striking something hard. It was a hand, which he had conjured using an advanced payment skill, Stone Golem, since he was suffering from massive blood loss. It automatically activated boiling blood, which dramatically increased his attack power. He then cleaved the rock soldier in half with his dagger. The system then instructed him to complete the stone golem's training. He had to control the golem to utilize different attack techniques against enemies. His progress stood at 0 out of 5. He then released a golem hand to defeat all the surrounding rock soldiers. One was instantly crushed, while others were pummeled by his golem hand. The golem hand remained raised high in the air. Meanwhile, in a completely different setting, Zikian slapped a chained woman, jolting her awake. The woman slowly came back to her senses. She found herself in front of a truly creepy altar. She'd just been drinking a soda, so she had no idea how she ended up in a place like this. She asked her manager, Zikian, how this was happening. Zikian was annoyed. His condensation pill hadn't worked, even after he'd taken it, and the dragon still hadn't responded to his offerings. Now, because of this, he decided to pray to a different deity, hoping for another condensation pill. The black-haired woman, his subordinate, panicked instantly when she realized he was trying to sacrifice her. She absolutely couldn't believe it. She had been paid 3,000 won a month, doing the grueling work of a beast, and now she had to sacrifice her life too. She furiously claimed that there was absolutely nothing in her company contract that said anything about that. Tyan clarified that their company had nothing to do with this. She signed a contract with a labor dispatch agency, which was simply unbelievable. He pressed a knife to her neck, declaring her chattering was over. She pleaded with him, begging for her life. Suddenly, an explosion ripped through the air. It was all thanks to a wooden stick wielded by Hay. Hay then spotted the manager, a man who treated his employees like his own children. He promptly flipped him the bird. By this point, Hay had completed the grueling stone golem training phase. Ji Qian's jaw dropped in utter disbelief at his sight. He simply couldn't believe that. Hay had found the place and bypassed the mechanical golems. Outside, meanwhile, Hay casually remarked how he wasn't surprised Ji Qian was still alive. He figured someone had already informed him of how difficult Hay was to kill. He speculated it was Ji Qian's now-deceased brother, who had spoken of Hay, prompting Ji Qian to declare he couldn't believe Hay killed his brother. He then demanded to know if Hay possessed his brother's condensation pill. Attacking immediately, he demanded Hay hand it over. He wasn't even curious about his brother's demise. He'd only helped kill Hay previously, to save his own reputation, as well as that of his family. But now that his elder brother was dead, he claimed the rights to all his possessions. He was completely caught off guard by the sight of Hay's devastating palm technique. It instantly shattered his right arm into pieces. The black-haired woman looked away as Ji Qian's body slid towards the altar's entrance. His blood began to spill, and the creature on the altar's other side sensed it, fully awakening the entity. A sinister aura permeated the air. At this critical moment, only 9 minutes and 20 seconds remained. He quickly cut the woman's chains. The woman instantly recognized him. She recalled he'd vanished without a trace after the company. She never expected him to be so incredibly powerful. He replied that he had no time for explanations and commanded the golem to escort her out first. She was far too stunned to speak as the golem's hand closed around her. Meanwhile, back at the scene, Zikian's body was being consumed by the creature, lurking within the dark altar. Its eyes then snapped open. It snatched a sword, and she stepped forth. Just gazing at her pulsing crimson body, you could immediately tell she was no ordinary being. He saw her. His eyes instinctively tried to gauge her immense power, but her strength was utterly overwhelming. Her mere presence already made him bleed. He attempted to use his divine senses to assess her cultivation level, but was instead hit by a devastating countermeasure. The exit where she emerged had now sealed shut, making him wonder what kind of entity Ji Qian had accidentally sacrificed himself to. And without uttering a single word, she charged straight at him. He blocked her sword with his dagger, but her sheer strength forced him to his knees. The sword grazed his shoulder, leaving a scratch. She was about to deliver a brutal kick, but he managed to block it with his other arm, and then an explosion erupted. He was hurled violently towards a cave wall. She immediately settled into her combat stance, He noticed the immense weight and force behind her strikes. He planned to summon the golem for assistance when she charged again, but before he could even react, he was already slashed. Meanwhile, at the floating island, 3 clay statues had completely shattered. The divine dragon seemed greatly bothered that all the deaths substitute puppets had exploded all at once. She could tell it was a dire sign she was about to die. Meanwhile, he was confused. He hadn't even seen the sword swing, yet he had already been struck. He fell onto his stomach. The woman closed her eyes as magic swirled around her finger. Then, she was about to strike him again. She aimed directly for his neck, but he managed to block it with his dagger. The impact was so incredibly powerful that it unleashed a violent gust of air around them. He realized she even intended to finish him off. With a follow-up strike, he signaled with his finger, and a massive golem hand appeared. It tried to smash her, but she expertly evaded it with a swift somersault. Then, she quickly created distance between them. She was caught a little off guard when he swiftly followed up with a dagger attack. The system then notified him of the 99% damage he'd received, and that boiling blood had been activated. He was absolutely thrilled to finally have a proper duel. He also learned that her ultimate move, which one-shot him earlier, had a specific sequence. No wonder he couldn't defend against it before. He continuously attacked, utilizing his dagger, which she skillfully countered with her sword. Then he hurled an orb, instantly distracting her. The moment it struck her sword, it exploded, forcing her to unleash her one-shot move once more. He saw it coming. In fact, he was waiting for it. The system promptly notified him that the enemy's skill had been prepaid. She then unleashed Celestial Annihilation. Both combatants released a surge of destructive energy, and when it clashed, it caused yet another massive explosion. When the dust finally cleared, it revealed that both of them were still standing. But mere seconds later, the woman collapsed. He, however, was completely fine. She was utterly confused about what had just happened, since she had launched an attack on him first. It should have hit, but he remained unharmed. He mocked her for being so flustered that she actually spoke normally. All this time, he thought she was mute. He replied that while she could strike preemptively, he could do the same. Initially, he wanted to prepare a defense against the final outcome of her attack, but he couldn't. It seemed like it required a much higher cultivation level. Then he remembered that the last time they clashed, she hadn't finished him off, and instead tried to slice his neck as a follow-up. He anticipated that next time she'd go for his head, and so he prepared for precisely that. As a bonus, he even managed to steal a slash. This made her furious, but something else distracted her. A magic circle then mysteriously appeared, and he was warned to quickly complete the hand signs for his prepaid technique, or he'd face divine retribution. It was his first time seeing the divine punishment that one must endure when using prepaid heavens. Law techniques. They both made a hand gesture. The woman panicked as her spell signs wouldn't align. A hand shot from the ground, grappling her arms. She refused to let that interrupt her from completing her crucial spell, but he didn't need to stop her from finishing it. He just needed to waste her precious time. She broke free, then frantically continued her signs, but was already too late. Several magic circles rained down. It was a tribulation devastating a wide area. He was safe, though. The system notified him, quasi-condensation realm. Prepayment had been completed. It had deducted the required share of cultivation and virtue from a session. His cultivation has risen to the 3rd layer of the condensation realm. New system resources were then unlocked for prepayment. The woman crawled out of the pit. He blocked her path and commented, "You're still breathing." She admitted that she lost, and he could kill her, skin her, or whatever he pleased. That made her different from the others, who'd begged for mercy before dying. But she was surprisingly calm. He was about to strike her with his dagger. She closed her eyes, bracing for the attack. But nothing happened, to her surprise. All her wounds were miraculously healed. He then told her they now share one health bar. He invited her to ascend together. A blood curse was inscribed on this woman, Long In. Damage taken by her in combat will now be transferred to the Dragon King. Back at the bath, the cat was sleeping peacefully. The water in the bathtub turned into bubbles, and the divine dragon suddenly stood up. The cat, surprised by her sudden action, woke and asked what happened. The divine dragon felt something strange, like another vampire was on her. The system notified him that the advanced payment skill has been upgraded. He can now make advanced payments for magical artifacts, elixirs, but the level of items cannot exceed his current major realm. The next day in school, Longin appeared, clad in skimpy clothing. He turned to her, Fatty. The green-haired guy kept a close eye on her. Fatty, intrigued, wondered who she was. Our green-haired friend teased him for crushing on his sister-in-law. His face immediately went pale. Clarifying his heart only had room for teacher Jew. He then asked the woman if they knew each other. She pointed out they just battled a few days ago. She reminded him they were on the same health bar. He finally recognized her. She'd changed her hairstyle. That's why he couldn't recognize her at first. He then asked how she'd managed the enrollment, procedures, and transfer into their class. She sat beside him and simply replied, "That one fresh trick works every time." 2 days ago, the principal received a hefty stack of gold bars to admit a new transfer student. And in the present setting, homeroom teacher Tao announced the small-scale tests were over, and it would mark the beginning of the mock exams. For most of them, this would be their very first real combat experience. They've all studied hard for dozens of years, so it was time for them to show the true results of their cultivation. He then called all students to assemble in the examination area first. Grade 12, Class 1 was told to assemble. Then Class 2 began their roll call. Class 3 was all present. Class 4 was called next. Ian actually found the exam interesting. Their green-haired classmate was worried they'd embarrass themselves in front of the whole grade. He assured him it was going to be fine. It made him perk up, but to his disappointment, he explained that he was shameless, so he didn't care about being embarrassed. The teacher then announced the examination rules. Each class has its own exclusive examination area. The edges of the area have been sealed with barriers, ensuring that candidates in the same exam will not interfere with each other. Each candidate will fight the exact same monster. Those who achieve a KO within 5 minutes will receive a full score. Those who failed to get a KO by the end of the exam, your performance would be timed based on the effective damage you dealt. Should any emergency occur during the exam, Teacher Joe, at the center of the field, would intervene. The exam had officially started. The next students called up would descend and prepare. First up, from grade 12 Class 1, Zhao Jiakong and Guo Fan Liang. Also from Class 2, Tang Long and Class 4's, Yugasaki Hanako. Someone asked why people from the insect were here. The green-haired student replied, "It's because this is a mission from the Cultivation Education Bureau. As part of the top-tier sect peace treaty, almost every high school has to accept a few exchange students from the insect." He thought only regular high schools had exchange students. I didn't expect cultivation high schools to do that, too. A long black-haired girl sent something. This girl was Rugasaki Hanako, and she glanced at the audience. They could tell her intuition was sharp. Ian was annoyed she was glaring at her master. She claimed she was the only one who got a glare. At her little bro, the green-haired guy commented. Their hierarchy was truly something else. They were speechless. The test had begun, and the exam monster was summoned. A large, creepy portal appeared at the center. An eye appeared, then revealed this mushroom man creature. Teacher John felt the ominous aura. He was nervous, because it was the Cloud Canopy Demon Lord, suppressed by the Taizhong sect. He told Teacher Tao that using it for the first mock exam was too much. Teacher Tao called him impatient and mocked him, saying it was no wonder he was still a PE teacher. Teacher Tao then explained, if it had been the original body, even after being suppressed, all of them would have died already. But these exam monsters were all clones, grown from the spores of that demon lord. Although they were still at the condensation realm, their strength was no match for the proctoring teachers, and the site was surrounded by powerful suppression stones, so they really had nothing to worry about. A student then unleashed a flurry of fire talismans. This forced the monster to quickly leap backward. The teacher then announced that If students failed to damage the exam monster before the exam ended, they would automatically receive a score of 0. The student who released the fire talismans could only sob in despair. Another student hurled a barrage of rocks at the exam monster, but was promptly punched by it instead. While the student had managed to damage the monster threw him right out of the examination area, resulting in a failure. They then announced the results for other students. Zhang Shuiwen scored 61 points. Wu Liwan failed, and Chen Jianglin got 68 points. The bystanders couldn't believe how difficult this first mock exam of a year truly was. Not a single person had scored over 70, and only a handful had even passed. They questioned which teacher was responsible for this exam, planning to find out later. The green-haired student felt a wave of relief. He had nothing to be embarrassed about now, since everyone else was already mortified. Then he noticed something. Teacher John expressed that Teacher Tao had definitely gone too far. Making the first mock exam so incredibly hard could utterly destroy the students' confidence. Teacher Tao reasoned that if they couldn't even withstand a mock exam of that difficulty, then it would be the worst class he'd ever taught. He then noticed something in the arena. Hanako was actively running away from the monster. He hadn't expected that at all. She was heading straight for the edge of the barrier. He couldn't believe she was forfeiting the exam. But just before she crossed the barrier, she jumped. She was about to cross it, but she didn't. Instead, she used it to steady herself and gain more momentum. As she prepared for her attack, the monster was about to punch her, but she unsheathed her sword in an instant. She absolutely decimated the monster. Teacher John was stunned by the complete knockout. She earned a perfect score. The crowd was in awe. Most were just trying to pass, and yet she scored perfectly. They called her a total monster and wondered just where she came from. Someone piped up, saying she's the exchange student from the In sect, the top student of class 4. The samurai watched her, a smug look on his face. He knew this was only the beginning. He then set up an extra exam for them. Giant mushrooms had sprouted from cracks all over the arena floor, and they were linked to a far scarier creature beneath. The next batch of examinees was called. The first name called was from grade 12. Class 1, Li Juanhao, the green-haired guy. Expected him to get a perfect score too, since he's the number 1 student in class 1. He noticed Hay moving his hand, so he asked what he was gesturing at, knowing he couldn't see the system prize wheel. So he simply replied that he was just waving off some mosquitoes. He didn't care who was number 1. He only cared about what's sweet. Magical artifacts he could get an advance payment on. Meanwhile, the fangirls absolutely roared for Juanhao. Juanhao was confident he'd slay the exam monsters. He was eager to prove that. There was no difference in level, even between 2 number 1s. Suddenly, black mist filled the area. The mushroom monster began emitting the mist. Teacher Tao had no idea who came up with such a monster. Juanhao was utterly confident that, even if it changed its form, he would still instantly obliterate it. Mystical writings appeared on his fist as he clenched it. Then he unleashed a punch that sent the monster flying backwards. Teacher John was astonished by his raw power. Teacher Tao then explained. Juanhao imprints a magic formation directly onto his arm to drastically boost the destructive power of his fist. This kid held a lot of hope for a guaranteed admission to Peking University from Tsinghua University, but the teacher seethed, annoyed he wasn't in his class. The attack was so destructive, it completely caved the ground. He proudly boasted his punch guaranteed his admission, and that he had also proven a clear distinction between 2 number 1s. But then he turned ghastly pale. Even the teacher started to get worried. The monster stood defiantly right in front of him. He was utterly shocked it was still standing. He found it strange. He knew it wasn't, because he'd twisted his waist and set his shoulder, incorrectly affecting his power generation. He decided to simply do it again. But Teacher John completely panicked, screamed at him to get away from there. He continued to punch, though, but before he could even land his punch, he was instead gut-punched and sent flying. He crashed hard against the wall with a powerful impact. Teacher John rushed to his aid and helped support him to stand, but he also coughed up blood. He did his best to disperse the force, but he still suffered severe internal injuries. He knew this monster wasn't supposed to be there. He immediately got on the phone to call for reinforcements. Since an off-the-charts monster had just appeared, the person on the other line asked about the current exam's difficulty. He requested the highest realm teachers available. The monster came charging straight towards them. Someone immediately restrained its feet. The proctor was clearly offended that the monster acted like he didn't even exist. He then bound the monster's arms as well. Little did they know, though, that the monster underneath had fully opened its eyes. The mushroom monster sprouted spikes from its back, and they pierced right through the ground. The proctor continued to hold the binding strings tight, but something underneath had just shattered. The ground around him. He knew that's not good. The entire area he was in then exploded. The monster completely broke free, but a massive fireball came raining down on it. It fiercely countered the attack by releasing something explosive from its mushroom head, and it violently clashed with the fireball, creating yet another massive explosion. The monster burst forth from a smoky haze. Its gaze immediately fixated on the figure atop the roof, the one unleashing a barrage of fireballs. Hanako surveyed the unfolding chaos from high atop the city walls. With a decisive motion, she unsheathed her swords. The samurai standing beside her demanded, "What are you doing?" She declared, "I'm going down to help them." A man named Sezaki Kaku from the Ryusaki sect bellowed at her, "Are you utterly insane?" He reminded her that this entire exam was orchestrated, specifically to clear your path to success. As long as this outrageously powerful monster accidentally eliminates those top-ranking students in the entire grade, you'll be guaranteed admission to Tsinghua University or even Peking University, even the prestigious Shushi University. She refused to resort to such despicable tactics just to secure a guaranteed admission spot. She was determined to personally tear apart that monstrous beast. But suddenly, a strange sensation washed over her. She clutched her head, screaming out in agony. Kaku had activated a soul-binding curse on her. He felt a surge of relief, knowing she was now on a leash. Otherwise, his father's meticulously planned strategy would have been utterly wasted. Hanako had inherited none of the cold-blooded and cruel virtues of the Ryusaki family. Deep within her bones, she still carried the fatal flaw of her original bloodline. She was gentle, kind, and inherently upright. It made him genuinely wonder why his father would expend resources on her. His thoughts were abruptly cut short as an explosion rocked the top of the building. Teacher Tao was violently hurled outwards. He instantly realized the monster was at least at the 5th layer of the condensation realm. He questioned, who on earth approved this exam monster? He quickly activated a body-protecting astral shield. The monster lunged directly towards him. It moved with such blinding speed his eyes couldn't follow. His only option was to erect an Omni, directional defensive shield. The monster struck, immediately creating a visible crack in the shield, then ultimately shattering it. It then seized Teacher Tao by the neck. A grotesque, wide grin stretched across its face. The teacher began to drool, his eyes rolling back as the monster brutally choked him. But then, someone intervened. They swiftly sliced the monster's arm to ribbons. And of course, it was none other than our main man. Just 15 minutes earlier, the green-haired student was trembling right beside Hei. After spotting the monster, Hei could tell the guy was completely intimidated by its terrifying demonic aura. He didn't expect someone in the condensation realm to be so easily scared by demonic aura. The cultivation level of this monster was at the 7th layer of the condensation realm. He was able to pinpoint that level. Hei was impressed by her incredible sharpness, but she clarified that it wasn't her mind, it was her body that sensed the powerful opponent. It was getting agitated. That's what told her the opponent's class. Hei pressed on his system wheel again. He set up a barrier around the perimeter, so it wouldn't be easy for that monster to escape. He also assumed the monster planned to wipe them all out. Currently, Hei was at the 3rd layer of the condensation realm, but factoring in his extra-long health bar, his actual strength was closer to the 7th layer. He checked the market for some new weapons. After browsing all the newly unlocked weapons, He found the only top-grade one available. It was also the only one purchasable via advance payment. He also really liked its attributes. Channeling mana through it could refine and absorb the attributes of other magical artifacts. The refined artifact's realm couldn't be higher than the weapon's current realm. He could also channel mana to make the weapon absorb his techniques and then release them. He acquired this Cloud Ruin Guider through advance payment. He placed it beside his dagger. Then he informed Een that after he went down, she had to stay up there as a precaution. He had a feeling that this bonus monster would bring out yet another bonus monster. Een agreed, though. She then inquired if those teachers couldn't handle those monsters. Hei could tell. She had a natural instinct for the strong ones, but not for the not-so-strong. He then explained that those few teachers there were all only at the first layer of the condensation realm. Only their homeroom teacher, Tao, had reached the 5th layer. If Tao could prepare and set up a formation in advance, he'd barely scrape by. But in a sudden encounter, though, he was at a huge disadvantage. Luckily, this was exactly what Hei excelled at. His weapon's refinement was finally complete, and it now possessed the boiling blood attribute. Teacher Tao was already choking when Hei swooped in to save him. Teacher Tao was stunned to see his transfer student there. He quickly informed him there was a barrier just outside the wall, trapping the students inside. He urgently asked Hei to find a way to break it, while he handled the monster himself. Tao, dedicated to his role as a teacher and a true role model, stepped back, resolute in protecting his students. The monster focused on him when spores burst forth from its neck, and its arm had completely regenerated. Hei instantly noticed its incredible healing speed. It was practically brand new in a blink. He figured it was a fungus-type monster. Without warning, it charged. Hei raised his sword to block the attack. He felt its fist had grown even harder. Then, it prepared to punch him with its other hand. He deduced it was compressing demonic aura onto its fist surface to boost its hardness. Then, it readied for another devastating punch. The impact was powerful enough to send Hei soaring. Fortunately, he managed to halt himself before crashing into the wall, but with shocking speed. The monster was already right next to him. It raised its fist once more and slammed into him. The explosion that followed obscured their view. From above, Teacher John was clearly worried the transfer student was about to die. Teacher Tao then urged him to go down and save Hei. John was utterly speechless. Teacher Tao knew that Teacher John had always hidden himself from a distance. So, for Teacher John to save the number 1 student, he was absolutely convinced that the student's family had spoken to him. Otherwise, he would have never gone down there to save him. Teacher John's silence confirmed everything. Teacher Tao admitted that the transfer student's courage was commendable, but there was nothing they could do. No one inside could solve this problem. They'd be lucky if they could just break the barrier. Before that friend comes up there, the mushroom monster continuously punched the spot where Hei would have been. Teacher John couldn't stand how tragic it was. Hei would probably have been beaten to a pulp already. The monster looked like it was enjoying every moment when Hei suddenly grabbed its fist to stop it. Both Teacher John and the monster were stunned. The boiling blood effect had activated, so it was now Hei's turn. He struck the monster with his sword, sending it flying to the other side of the arena. The monster got back up on its knees. Then it saw a brilliant light from the sky. It was Hei's sword. At the last minute, the monster caught it with its palms. Then, Hei activated the Dark Sword Heart. Thunder. The tip of the blade released a dark, pulsing orb that was just inches away from the monster's face. Then exploded. Only a foot was left of the monster. Its spores spread, and Teacher John was absolutely amazed that Hei took it down in just one hit. But Hei sensed something else. He looked at the sky and saw another monster there. It was almost the same monster, except this one had a massive eye on its mushroom cap, and a mushroom cap spun wildly away from its head. Then, the mushroom cap released a volley of spikes. They formed into deadly missiles and rained down on Hei. Hei braced himself for the relentless incoming attack. The monster showered them with a barrage of missiles. All the other students panicked and ran for cover. There was a barrier outside, so they had to run in any direction they could. Hei made a swift hand gesture. to activate the stolen golem shield formation. The students were worried. Since the area of effect was so wide, there was no way they could possibly escape. One of them was about to be hit. It blew up dangerously close to the student's face. The massive explosion triggered a catastrophic domino effect. All the other missiles detonated simultaneously. The student quickly braced himself. But to his absolute surprise, he was completely unharmed. They cheered, celebrating their miraculous survival. Yet, simultaneously, they were curious about who set up such a massive scale. Défensive formation. What a colossal formation. That must have drained immense magical power and cultivation. It was already clear. That person had to be one of the year's top students. For that year, the shield was scattered everywhere. Ian realized that Hay wasn't ruthless enough. He actually saved his classmates, even when there was no need to save those with bad grades. And those very top students, when they take the Cultivation University exams, they would surely target him. Hay's magical power was almost completely depleted, but he assumed the same for the mushroom cat monster. In the sky, it disintegrated. The monster gritted its teeth, then vanished. It reappeared right beside Hay. Hay immediately kicked his sword towards it and jumped before the monster could land its punch. He swiftly created some distance between them. But in a blink of an eye, the monster was already right behind him. He countered its punch with his sword. His sword emitted black static, and he swung it again. It beheaded the monster, sending its body reeling back. But in no time at all, the head regenerated, good as brand new. After Hay applied lightning magic to the blade, he could cut off its head easily. But its head can regenerate, which means the vital point isn't the head. He suspected it was hidden in the torso. The monster unzips its face. It revealed a single eye at the center of its forehead. In a flash, it was gone. Hay noticed how it had gotten faster again, but he saw where it appeared and attacked that spot. The monster ducked, then punched him hard in the side. It sent him flying, coughing up blood. Then the monster circled around him at lightning speed. It was so fast, it created an afterimage, and it continued to circle around him. Even so, he had skillfully blocked its relentless attacks. It punched him relentlessly without pause. He had taken multiple hits across his body, but still he stood his ground. Teacher John felt a pang of disappointment, seeing him on the losing end of the fight. After all, he truly believed the transfer student could turn the tables. Teacher Tao, however, insisted it was hopeless from the very start. There was no way for the student to ever win, with such an immense power gap between them. But for a transfer student to even fight, even with such a clear disadvantage, he was undeniably impressive. His raw power alone could rank him in the top 10 of their year. Ian watched the continuous exchange of blows. She was growing increasingly impatient, that he still wasn't using the move he'd used to beat her. He was pushed back. The monster was just too fast. It was almost impossible for him to keep up, especially the sudden burst of speed right before each attack. Even defending with all his might, he could only block a fraction of its force. He had taken 150% damage, which meant his boiling blood skill had been activated. He assumed his combat stance and charged forward. He raised his sword high. Teacher John looked utterly confused, since he'd taken a stance, but then just wasn't moving. He thought he'd given up, but then he unleashed a powerful skill called the Heavenly Law of Annihilation. The sheer power even shot up to where Teacher John stood. It even shattered the barrier. Teacher Tao was utterly dumbfounded, surprised that the barrier shattered so easily when he couldn't break it even with all his efforts. It made him feel completely unworthy of being a teacher, and he even considered just quitting. The monster's body was utterly obliterated. He acquired a Durian Fiend core. After a period of cultivation and growth, it could be controlled by a Beastmaster to assist them in combat. The system urged him to complete the ritual process for the Heavenly Law of Annihilation. He performed a series of intricate hand gestures, which eventually completed the ritual itself. Teacher John was left utterly speechless, in complete awe. He couldn't even clearly perceive the final strike. He then told Teacher Tao that, with He-Y's strength, he could easily be more than just a top 10 student in his grade. He could even rival the select few at the very top. However, Teacher Tao had no response, consumed by thoughts of his own incompetence. Later that day, He-Y and Een strolled through a park. He-Y had ascended to the 9th layer of the condensation realm. He can now advance techniques that have been paid forward to others. Een checked her phone and saw He-Y was trending. Everyone was calling him the biggest dark horse transfer student they'd ever seen. They also said he's guaranteed admission into top cultivation universities. She saw him gesturing in the air, so she asked what he was doing. He replied that he was simply paying his health insurance. He submitted 30% of the cultivation experience and merit points gained from the session to the Divine Dragon. He noticed he wasn't being healed anymore. It only heals him. After the health insurance payment was received, he noticed that her status had changed. The payment towards her was blocked by a dark cloud. He watched intently as a black cloud enveloped the sky. It covered the wide area around them. It was the black abyss, forbidden domain. They wouldn't be able to get in or out, and the inside and outside were invisible to each other. This formation was usually set up when someone wanted to kill a witness, to silence them. Suddenly, a kunai was thrown at them. He blocked it using his hand golem, but the kunai was rigged, so it exploded upon contact. He tried to create some distance, but she got stuck in a puddle of dark liquid. It engulfed her. He watched the smoke clear. He was amused by their technique. They had imprinted a small-scale explosion formation onto a kunai and used an incessant battle mansion technique to drag a disciple inside. Hanako charged at him. She swung her sword, and he blocked it with his own. She swung it again. It hit his hand, but he noticed she had used the back of her sword. He then dropped his sword. Hanako jumped back, creating distance between them. He asked her if she did the whole maneuver, just to snatch his weapon. She replied that her father ordered him to kill, since he's a competitor, towards her path to higher education. But she doesn't like doing things that way, so she planned to take his weapon and report back that he's dead, on the condition that he leaves the country and gives up any thoughts of college entrance exams. Otherwise, as long as he appears in school and in top rank, the people from the Een sect won't let him go. Her sword glowed the system-informed Hay that the post-payment mission for the weapon, Cloud Ruin Guide, has been triggered. A battle of supremacy then commenced, and both of them started being enveloped by a dark smoke. She asked him what was happening. She jumped and settled on a branch. Her eyes widened when she saw a different place. She jumped to the roof. She was puzzled how she ended up there. Hai explained that it was the realm of past reflections. It was a secret realm where one can only view past memories, but cannot interfere with them. The blade was advanced and it connected to her. So she immediately triggered the post-payment mission. After taking it, the post-payment mission forcibly pulled them into the realm of past reflections. She saw that the stolen blade had disappeared from her hands. He told her that the original body of the advanced pay blade should still be in the secret realm. If they don't find it, the blade would not return to his hand. They heard someone singing. The song was familiar to her. She saw someone running towards the house. It was Hanako when she was still younger. Once she reached the door, she announced to her dad that she had arrived home. Her eyes widened in shock. Everyone inside was dead. She cried out to her big sisters and brothers. She saw her mom with a sword on her torso. Then someone noticed her. It was the senior brother. She was confused. Why he's wearing the clothes of the Een sect? She demanded to know what he was doing. He approached her with a creepy grin. This was back when Hall was a mere 5th grader. Xianhui nimbly leaped onto the branches. She then launched her knives, each one finding its mark. Every shot was a bullseye before she dropped back down. A woman, perched on a branch, told her technique was already better than her own, even when she was Qianhui's age. It was her older sister, Hua Qianjing to be exact. Qianjing then pointed out she'd missed one, the one hidden behind the other tree. Qianhui immediately launched a knife at it. Qianjing watched, utterly astonished by her move. She then unleashed a second knife to shift the first one's trajectory mid-air. The knife perfectly struck its target. She then released another knife, violently striking the tree. The impact was so strong, it drilled a hole. Qianjing leaned in for a closer look. She couldn't believe her eyes. Qianhui had forced the knife through from behind. She eagerly asked if she'd hit the mark. Qianjing, impressed, confirmed her success, and with dusk approaching, they decided to head back home. Qianhui announced to her dad, "We're home." Her dad affectionately patted her head, asking about her practice. She excitedly shared that she'd hit every single target, even the one hidden behind the big tree. As they chatted happily, a sudden sound was being slashed. It was Hua Zhang of the Hua clan. She noticed his blade techniques had improved once more. Qianjing then asked their dad if he was truly going to teach him the family's sacred iron wall blade technique. Their dad admitted he was indeed considering it. Even though the boy wasn't directly from their bloodline, he had lived with them for 3 long years now. And based on his observations over these years, he was incredibly polite and pure-hearted. Jung would bring him tea and work tirelessly, even enduring pain and exhaustion. He was also honest and always took accountability. So the master considered him a truly good disciple, until a sword suddenly pierced the chair, just as the master was brutally stabbed, right in the very center of his chest. He gasped, "Jung, why would you do this?" Jung retorted that he was never truly one of them. He then revealed his true origin. He was born into the Ying clan. He changed his name and infiltrated their ranks for 6 long years, all just to master their family's formidable iron wall blade technique. Now that he had finally mastered it, he declared it only natural to annihilate the entire clan. The master threatened that even if Jung managed to stab him, the others waiting in the courtyard wouldn't let him leave unscathed. Suddenly, someone grabbed the door. It was Qianjing. She tried her best to walk towards her dad, even with a grievous chest wound. But it didn't last long. The master trembled as he watched his daughter die right before his eyes. He was consumed by a burning fury. That beast had actually poisoned his entire family. Jung calmly replied that the Yin clan had always strictly adhered to the principle, learn a move, destroy a clan. He then mused that it was a pity that his youngest daughter wasn't home yet from school. He was quite optimistic about her talent, but as if on cue, she suddenly announced her return. The master desperately begged him to spare his youngest daughter. Jung nonchalantly told him not to worry, since Qianhui's spiritual root was of exceptionally high quality. He planned to erase her memories and adopt her as his own daughter. But he wouldn't let the master keep waiting too long. Once Qianhui entered university, he planned to seize her spiritual root and reunite the real father and daughter. By the time he finished speaking, the master was already gone, and Zhang then greeted Qianhui at the entrance. He casually told her he'd gotten bored waiting, so he simply killed her family to pass the time. She dropped her bag, instantly vowing to kill him. She threw knives at him, but he merely stood still. He then effortlessly blocked them using his sword. He identified her technique, the omnidirectional flying dagger technique. It specialized in striking the blind spot, and Qianhui was the absolute best at it in their clan. But to him, who had already mastered the iron wall blade technique, it was completely useless. A dagger hit the roof, and another was an inch away from Jung's eyes. But then he violently seized her by the neck and then slammed her down with such incredible force, knocking her utterly unconscious. He then activated the heart-bewitching curse, and from that moment, she became his adopted daughter, taking the name Rugasaki Hanako. He planned to bring her to the Yin clan and train her, preparing her for the day that would come. When she finally awoke, she called him father. Jung then set the house ablaze, burning it to the ground. Afterward, they left. In the present, Hanako watched the entire building burn before her eyes. She stood there, lost in a daze. A wave of resentment and rage against Jung washed over her. He reminded her that she couldn't interfere, but she was already gone. She drew her sword, determined to kill him. But the moment her blade made contact, it shattered instantly. Jung, who was walking away, sensed a slight disturbance. The young Hanako asked her father what was wrong. but he replied that it was nothing. He just thought someone was approaching them. Then they continued to walk away. Once they returned, he would arrange for someone to teach her the Eastern tongue. The present Hanako trembled violently. She sobbed, a heartbroken wail escaping her. She felt utterly betrayed by the man she had called father. The system notified her that the scene had changed. The realm of past reflections had shifted to an interactive, tangible scene. They were instructed to find the key item, the Cloud Ruin Guide. She paid close attention to the notification. After that, they stepped into the burnout house to see what they could find. She could take it back as a memento. Her divine sense detected something there, but it was buried incredibly deep. He helped her dig it out. He used the golem hand and retrieved the items. She saw his blade, but he replied that no, it was truly hers. He gave it to her, but she couldn't understand why. He explained that it was left behind by her true father, and that it was meant to guide her to rediscover herself. So, it was always meant to be hers. He also gave her the blade manual left by her father. The blade manual was specifically designed to counter the iron wall. Blade technique. He asked her what was wrong. She told him how. It was extremely difficult to cultivate. It could take decades to even reach the first layer, but she couldn't wait that long. Even if she could Rugasaki, Shoichi would quickly realize that she's no longer the same person. But Hei told her that she no longer had to wait. She asked what he meant when suddenly he placed 2 fingers on her forehead and let his energy flow. Then the moves and mental incantations were poured into her mind. Breaking blade technique had been advanced. Paid to her then. The system informed her that the repayment for the breaking blade technique would be completed by her. During that process, 30% of cultivation experience and merit points she gains would be paid to Hei. As interest, she asked what that was. Hei explained that it was the system panel. She'll only see it after she accepts his advance payment. If she doesn't accept, she'll still have to pay him interest. But the advance payment could also be withdrawn. Without hesitation, she fell on her knees and bowed at him. He accepted her as his disciple and told her to get up quickly. He also told her that she just became his disciple. He doesn't have any good things to give her. So he told her he'll give her a set of magical robes in a bit. With that, the post-payment mission for the Cloud Ruin Guide was completed. Chunwei watched as the sun rose, and then she checked the mark on her hand. Hei explained to her earlier that with the blood curse, they had become master and disciple, linked by a single health bar. From then on, any damage she would take will be endured by him, her master. He also reminded her that the blade has a boiling blood effect, meaning the more damage she takes, the stronger her attack power will become. Someone then snapped her out of her daze, asking why she was lost in thought. Haku reminded her that their father was speaking to her. Shoichi then announced that, even though Hanako revealed a significant flaw in her personality during the recent exam, it was a good thing she saw the error of her ways. She swiftly eliminated those in her path and even brought him a treasured blade. Shoichi was pleased that his years of nurturing her hadn't been in vain. She then became confrontational, telling him directly that there was something she didn't quite understand, and she wanted to ask him about it. Kaku immediately called her out for not using honorifics. She then retorted, asking them if their deeds truly deserved such honorable titles. Shoichi glared, demanding to know what she meant. He asked if she dared to doubt whether his actions throughout the years had truly been righteous. She replied that he spoke of righteousness, like benevolence, propriety, wisdom, and sincerity, but then secretly committed robbery, looting, murder, arson, and even annihilated an entire clan. Kaku got enraged, defending their father by saying everything he did was for the sake of the sect. She calmly tied her hair into a bun, as she replied that they may know small etiquette, but they possessed no great righteousness. They were meticulous in small details, but severely lacked great virtue. She used a moon crescent headpiece to secure her bun. Also, this was a high-grade item that could reduce the spiritual energy she consumed when activating spells. She continued, telling them how they cared about minor matters, but utterly disregarded honor and shame. They feared authority, but never cherished kindness. She then dramatically removed her outer clothing, revealing a horse face. Magical skirt. This powerful garment increased the power of spiritual energy, activated moves by a whopping 30%. Plus, the outfit automatically repaired itself by absorbing surrounding spiritual energy. Shoichi noticed the condensed energy swirling in her hand. He instantly drew out a collection of swords, snatching one, ready for action. Qianhui declared that the weak would always serve, while the powerful had stooped to banditry. Kaku, his patience snapped, charged at her, but before his blow could even connect, she swiftly landed a kick square on his face, flinging him forcefully outside. Shoichi instantly knew she'd caught on. He was done with pretense himself. He commanded his clan to gather, and everyone quickly converged to face her. He barked the order, "Capture her." They assaulted her simultaneously. A bald assailant lunged at Shanwei with a sword, but she casually parried it with her scabbard, then delivered a sharp kick to his head. Another man attacked, and she cut him in half. While she was still in motion, a volley of shuriken was hurled her way. She hurled her sword directly at one assailant, piercing his neck, sending the attacker down. The others looked on in shock as they tightened their encirclement. When she daringly jumped in to reclaim her blade, they struck at her all at once, and she met their blades with her own. They relentlessly pressured her, aiming to overwhelm her eventually. As they pushed their swords, keeping her engaged, another attacker moved to stab her from the flanks. She saw it coming and manifested an instant barrier. Lightning flashed. Every attacker was hit at once. She then burst through the roof. An attacker looked up, searching for her. The man directly under the roof's hole was instantly cut down, in an instant, from her crouched position. Another man tried to seize the opportunity to attack. She slashed his arm, then pivoted to the next. She severed his head, systematically taking down everyone. These men couldn't believe they were actually losing to a single girl. They desperately tried to hold their ground in formation. The remaining men just watched from the sidelines. They, at least, had more sense. The fools who had jumped into battle actually thought their sheer numbers would guarantee victory. But this girl was handpicked by their sect leader, despite her outsider status, and didn't inherit his martial talent directly. When it came to the blade, her skills were unrivaled within the sect. Okawa Minta, a master of the In sect's 3 swords, knew Xianhui wouldn't stop until one of their 3 sword masters stepped in. Nagano Nakayusa, another of the 3 sword masters, agreed completely. He asked Minta why he wasn't joining the fray, having just watched from the sidelines. This entire time, Minta wasn't an idiot. The other 2 were watching. He wasn't about to jump in and be cannon fodder. Besides, his quick draw technique demanded that one perfect moment, so he had to wait for an opening. After a while, the scattered corpses lay everywhere. Xianhui was already utterly exhausted. She could barely stand upright. Minta saw this as his golden opportunity. He drew his sword and charged at her. She sensed him. She glanced behind her, and in a blink of an eye, she was slashed. Blood spurted from her body, and the assailant wore a wide grin. Then she was powerfully shoved away. In sensed something amiss. She could tell Xianhui's aura had weakened. It made her call out, "Are you just going to stand there?" He didn't expect her to be concerned for Xianhui's safety. He thought she'd be furious with her. After all, Xianhui had trapped her in that formation, but it was nothing to her. She had escaped with ease. When she got out, they were gone. For a second, she thought he'd run off with the enemy. He then revealed he actually planned to help. He'd erected a barrier around the building, a shimmering golden light barrier, covering the entire area. Ing couldn't understand why. His idea of helping was to trap everyone from the In sect, but it also trapped Xianhui inside too. He almost slipped, saying it was fine, as long as the dragon took the damage for her. But he quickly corrected himself, vowing to take the damage for her. Plus, with the boost from his boiling blood effect, he had faith in Xianhui. If things went south, he'd jump in, but for now, he wanted to guarantee that not a single one of those bastards would escape. The revenge they craved was to wipe them off the map. Meanwhile, Xianhui lay in a pool of her own blood. Minna boasted about his one-hit kill, then suddenly saw her stand, despite her trembling. He couldn't believe she was still alive. After slicing straight through her neck, he tried to recall the last second, and realized she'd actually blocked it. At the very last second, she got incredibly lucky, but Minta's resolve only hardened. The second time, he rushed towards her. She unleashed spirit object control. The floorboards shattered beneath them, floating into the air, then hurled at Minta, but cheap tricks like that wouldn't stop him. His boiling blood was active, with damage at 30%, she retorted. It wasn't meant to stop you. It was just to make you draw your blade early. Then she attacked him. She was caught off guard when her attack was blocked. Minta informed her, even without the first move. Advantage of my quick draw technique. My speed is still enough to parry. She countered with her breaking blade technique. And in an instant, her sword sliced right through his blocking blade, allowing her to strike him directly. Immediately after, the system processed Blade of Crushing Momentum. Post-payment, mission progress. She needed to use Blade Crushing Momentum 5 times in battle. This technique consumes a large amount of spiritual energy. After a successful parry, it ignores the opponent's block to strike the enemy directly behind their weapon. At the moment, her spiritual energy was too low, so she was advised to wait for it to recover before using it. The remaining sword masters of the Yin sect, Matsu, Naga, Yino, and Nagano, Nakayasu, saw their weakest comrade eliminated. Nakayasu saw Qianhui's blocking blade, completely unscathed. It made him wonder how she'd slice through the person behind it. Internally, Yuyo grew curious about how the girl's cultivation level had improved so drastically in the past. Minta's quick draw technique would have been enough to kill her. Several times over, he suggested they attack together. It wasn't because he lacked confidence. He just thought, it's better if they all share the credit for taking down the girl. Nakayasu agreed, telling him he'd cover him. He unleashed the sky-rending slash. Chun-Wei bent low to evade it, and while she was in that position, Yuyo charged at her. She immediately blocked his sword, but he was powerful enough to send her flying. She shattered the wall and was hurled outside. Her hands were left shaking from that heavy blade. In an instant, Yuyo was attacking her again. He wore an arrogant smile on his face while doing so. He managed to make her drop her weapon. She immediately used spirit object control to snatch back her weapon, but before it landed in her hand, he attacked her again. Her spirit object control hand blocked the blade, but the pressure was overwhelming her. Suddenly, she was struck on the side. She hadn't been expecting that. Yuyo commented that Nakayasu was ruthless for slicing the girl in two. Nakayasu told him to finish her already. It wouldn't be certain until he cut off her head. Qianhui lay there, bleeding. Then Yuyo attempted to behead her, but left him dumbfounded. He was confused by how she was standing up again. And he also saw that even her clothes were healing. He couldn't believe that. A fatal wound that nearly cut her in half at the waist healed in a blink of an eye. He wondered if it was some healing art that someone in the condensation realm could master. She used spirit object control again to get her sword back. At this point, boiling blood damage was at 80%. She approached him, and Yo-Yo noticed something. He took an involuntary step back. Then, he unleashed his attack on her. He didn't care how impressive her healing technique was. She couldn't withstand his blade anyway. Once he took her head off, her healing arts would become utterly useless. She swiftly moved her sword in response. Their blades fiercely clashed in the center. Nakayasu simply couldn't believe it. She had taken a sky-rending slash straight to the waist, and was still fighting on top of that. She could even parry his blade with just one hand. He realized she was actually getting stronger as she fought. He had to finish her, and fast. He unleashed multiple sky-rending slashes. This was a truly massive attack. Yo-Yo could easily get caught in the crossfire, so he asked if Nakayasu was trying to slice him, too. Nakayasu simply replied that his sacrifice would be remembered by the sect. But Yo-Yo refused to be cannon fodder. He swiftly jumped away, but she grabbed him and used him as a meat shield. It was gruesome. Blood was absolutely everywhere. Nakayasu watched as blood and debris flew through the air in the explosion. Eventually, the chaos subsided, and he saw she was gone. But he sensed her from behind and immediately attacked. She bent her body, narrowly evading the slash. Her hands slammed against the ground. And by then, she had fully recovered her spiritual energy. The blade of crushing momentum was now available. He blocked her sword. He acknowledged that she was incredibly durable, but he was supremely confident in his sword skills. But then, her blade sliced straight through his sword. He absolutely didn't expect that. He was sliced lengthwise in the blink of an eye. Post-payment. Progress for the breaking blade technique was May 2nd. Chinwe glanced behind her. A man clapped, praising her for her excellent work. This man, who claimed to be her father, was quite pleased with her rapid improvement. It was Rugasaki Shoichi. Seeing him instantly irritated Xianwei. Without hesitation, she attacked him, declaring he made her sick. He blocked her sword, then threw a blade straight at her. She deftly dodged by bending incredibly low. Immediately after, he summoned several blades, suspending them in midair. He smugly reveled in his clever strategy. He learned her clan's iron wall blade technique, then brutally wiped them out. Now he was the only one left in the world who possessed the technique. She remarked his wide grin was practically splitting his face in two, but he couldn't care less. Her face contorted with a furious expression. She warned him to keep that disgusting smile, because she'd slice his head open following that grin, and she wouldn't want to mess up the cut. She lunged forward with blinding speed. He countered her attack with a flurry of blades. As they moved simultaneously, she attacked relentlessly, but his swirling blades formed an impenetrable shield that perfectly protected him. The blades whirled in a rapid, circular motion, cutting her all over her body. This automatic defensive formation barely consumed any of his spiritual energy. He was utterly confident she couldn't even scratch him, no matter how fiercely she tried. She warned him that the harder she attacked, the more she'd get hurt. He wondered how long she could possibly keep that up. She then unleashed a breaking blade technique, slashing through his blades. Because of that, she finally managed to get close to him. He blocked her sword, employing a sword post-payment counter. Her breaking blade technique progress was at 5 out of 3, just as he had anticipated. Her move could only pierce his guard a single time. He had been observing her for quite some time, so he had her all figured out. He unleashed another volley of blades, directly striking her. She collapsed, lying in a widening pool of her own blood. She appeared to be completely unconscious. Someone watched her through a shimmering teacup. The cat informed the divine dragon that the new life, leech attached to her, was on the verge of dying. He then saw her face. She was bleeding profusely. She told him not to make such a big deal out of it, claiming it was just a little blood. The cat was utterly aghast. Blood was gushing from countless parts of her body. He questioned if that could truly be called just a little bit. He understood she was using that girl, but the way she was taking all that damage was simply too much for her. He could tell she was cooking up something big. She replied that it was a trade secret. Back to the fight. Shuichi was shocked. Qianwei was back on her feet again. She saw his reaction and reminded him to keep that wide smile. He was even more determined to mince her into pieces. This time, the system notified them that the boiling blood skill was, in effect. Damage was at 170%, her sword crackling with concentrated power. She charged at once, bypassing his blades, but he still managed to move as in time and block her sword. Then he counterattacked. She swung her sword and hit him exactly on his mouth. Just as she said earlier, she cut him down right at his mouth. Using a breaking blade technique duet, half of his head went flying, while blood gushed from his body. The post-payment mission for breaking blade technique had been completed. It was now at May 5th. She watched his body fall. A man hiding behind a pillar saw it happen. This was Shoichi's son, Rugasaki Kaku. He thought his father's iron wall blade technique was an absolute defense, and yet she had beaten him. He didn't dwell on it much and ran away. He thought of himself as the sect leader now, so he planned to get out of there, get some help from the main In sect, and come back to butcher her. He didn't care if she was Hanako, Chenhui, or whatever her name was. He followed the saying, those who retreat today may live to fight again tomorrow. Unexpectedly, he stepped on a magic circle. It was an annihilation trap. A fire tornado engulfed him. Xianhui watched the whole building burn. She had finally avenged her family. The wind blew, and he showed up to praise her for doing great. 30% of cultivation experience and merit points from the mission. He had been transferred to Hei. Chun. Huey's cultivation had been boosted to the 9th layer, reaching the pinnacle of the condensation realm. Hei's own cultivation was already maxed out for this realm, and he was now ready to advance to the golden core realm. Meanwhile, Chunhui informed Hei that her magical robe wouldn't auto-repair anymore. Hei explained that it was merely because she was low on spiritual energy. At that moment, he unlocked the shop for her, allowing her to advance and purchase a new outfit for herself. She thanked him for his generosity. She picked out one with similar style and stats, but admitted she couldn't afford the 500,000 yuan post-payment. He assured her it was no problem at all, since before she'd burned down the Rugasaki estate, he had already looted all their valuables. He'd simply used their legacy to cover the cost. Suddenly, he got goosebumps, sensing a murderous aura. It was Fermine. She was furious that he clearly had favorites. She was his very first disciple, but she hadn't received anything to calm her down. To appease her, he also set up an advance payment for her. He asked what she wanted to upgrade. Her options were leveling gear or skills. She replied, "I want it all." The system then notified that the dual feather greatsword had been upgraded. The system panel then appeared for her too. It notified her that she had to complete the post-payment mission within 1 week. Upon completion, she would receive an upgrade to her cultivation, experience, equipment, and skills. To begin the mission, she had to click the button to teleport to the corresponding secret realm. Hei couldn't believe she was leaving at once. When there was a second mock exam, she declared, "I don't see the point of that stupid test. It's nothing important to me. What only matters is ascending in the end. And I don't care about what happens in between." And with that, she vanished. He was amazed at how badass she was. He let her be, since they were distant. They just got a school notification, telling them to pick up their admission tickets for the second mock exam. The teacher asked why they were just showing up, when everyone else had already gotten theirs a whole week ago. They replied that their brains were fried from cram school, so they totally forgot. He then asked where the exam hall was. She told him there was a special magic seal right on the ticket. He just had to channel his spiritual power into it, and it would teleport him straight to the exam site. He was amazed at how incredibly high-tech it was. Qing Yin, the teacher, expressed that he had really made a name for himself. In the last mock exam, he completely overshadowed all the other top students. His ranking shot straight up to first place in the entire school. He humbly replied that he just got lucky. She informed him that the exam would be held among 10 schools, so the competition would be absolutely fierce, and he would run into some truly ruthless people who would do whatever it takes to win. So he had to be extremely careful. The next day, Qianhui inquired if they would be at the same exam site. He had no idea, because the sites were randomly assigned. He wished him to be safe, and that they'd see each other at the finish line. And then he left as the magic card glowed. Then he found himself transported to a forest. He wondered if this place was the secret realm, the giant wood forest. He'd read about it in the exam syllabus, but seeing it in person, the trees were way bigger than he ever imagined. Suddenly, a drone flew to him and notified him the exam had begun. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the forest, a menacing shadow was cast over another student. It was from a hungry, 5th-layer spirit guiding realm. Bear Fiend. The bear attacked him, and he responded with a powerful punch. The bear was blasted away. It hit the ground. Meanwhile, in another place entirely, one more bear became someone else's punching bag. This student was Chiba number 6, middle school's 3rd ranker, Li Junhao. The blonde cheerleaders were practically fawning over him. He proudly declared that those monsters were merely his warm-up act. He believed he only lost to Hei in the first mock exam due to a careless mistake. Still, he was confident he wasn't actually weaker than him. Suddenly, a powerful presence washed over him. It belonged to a 6th-layer condensation realm fiend, a massive glasses bear fiend. He gazed into its ferocious eyes and saw the countless scars covering its body. This beast was clearly a total badass that had clawed its way to the top of the food chain. Its aura was just as intense as the mushroom fiends. The blondes quickly ducked behind a massive boulder. They were impressed he was facing such a strong fiend. But little did they know, his legs were trembling. In fact, he couldn't even move his legs. He hadn't realized his PTSD from the previous exam was this severe. But then, the bear suddenly sensed something and unexpectedly bolted away. Junhao wondered what just happened. Then, he saw our MC casually pass right by him. The gust of wind Hay left behind threw him off balance. He still couldn't believe what he'd just witnessed. Hay, meanwhile, was thrilled to chase after this cute little bear. It seemed our boy was genuinely enjoying hunting these incredibly deadly bears. Deeper in the forest, a tree stood with a gaping hole. Bloodstains splattered all around it. Even some debris nearby was smeared with blood. It was painfully evident a brutal fight had taken place. Junhao then noticed something unsettling among the shrubs. What he saw next made him turn absolutely pale. Behind that shrub lay the corpses of several fiends. Almost a dozen elite fiends. In fact, all of them at the 5th and 6th layers of the condensation realm. Hay had wiped them out like they were nothing. He finally realized just how naive he'd been to think he could ever compete with Hay. Through mana projection, the real-time scoreboard flashed into view. Subject 2 was about to commence. All examinees were instructed to prepare. At this moment, 72 out of 100 examinees remain. The current ranking showed Zhang Jisher from number 1 middle school, leading with 200 points. He was closely followed by He Xin of number 6 middle school, who also had 200 points. In third place was Yuping from number 8 middle school, scoring 198 points. Hua Qian Qian from number 6 middle school with 186 points. And in fifth place was Moden, representing number 7 middle school, with 180 points to his name. Yu Ping, the top student from number 8 middle school, couldn't believe how some people managed to turn what should have been an easy monster into a literal suicide mission. Only the top 10 students from each school were permitted to take this exam. He thought they were a total disgrace to their rank. He then asked a beautiful woman, Xianhui, if she would agree with him. She simply ignored him. Leaping onto a nearby tree, he unleashed a ground-shaking technique, then immediately pursued her. He'd watched her closely during Subject 1, and could tell she possessed immense potential. He asked if she considered joining his family's sect. With her talent, he wanted to take her on as his disciple, as soon as he himself became qualified. That guy was stealing her kills earlier, and now he was following her around. She was definitely getting annoyed by him. Subject 2 had officially begun. Several armor-piercing bear claws were hidden throughout the field. They were tasked to collect 10 of these, to synthesize an armor-piercing spear, which would significantly increase their chances of defeating the formidable boss fiend. A student perched atop a tree commented that they made things so unnecessarily complicated when the boss fiend was just waiting on the mountain peak. He then unleashed his wind control, wind stepping technique. This guy was Moden, the top student from number 7 middle school. He was a once-in-a-generation genius from the prestigious MO family. He could literally ride the wind without even being in the Golden Core realm yet. He believed he wouldn't need any armor-piercing spear. He faced off against the 10th layer condensation realm, sand-rending black bear fiend. He thought the boss would be a tough opponent, but it was just in the same realm as him. He unleashed his wind control, stone-shattering astral wind, and engulfed the monster in a powerful tornado. The tornado continued, relentlessly growing stronger, to the point it sheared off the mountain's peak. Yuping couldn't believe Moden actually pulled it off. Moden was confident he'd nail those points. For Subject 2, suddenly sensing a powerful aura, he immediately fled. The bear lunged right at him. He instantly turned pale when he saw it was completely unharmed. He tried blocking it with his wind control, wind wall, but the bear blasted him clear away. He was falling fast. An explosion rocked the air, and it hurled him straight toward the trees, crashing hard onto the ground. Badly injured, the bear still followed. Yuping called him an idiot for trying to brute force the problem without reading the instructions. And now he'd even dragged the boss down here. But fortunately, It looked like it had no intention of attacking. On its own, the armor-piercing bear claws were on the boss, but they needed to kill it. The mechanics were kind of messed up. The bear showed its claws. Suddenly, Yuping remembered. Some of the other elite bear fiends carried what he needed. It was pretty rare, but if he started searching, he thought he might have a chance. The other bear he found raised its arms. He saw the incoming attack. When the bear struck the tree, it left a crescent-shaped hole. But unexpectedly, the bear was hit right on the chest, and it fell, as blood splurted from its body. Yuping had killed it with a water ray attack. He checked the corpse, since not every elite bear fiend had an armor-piercing bear claw. Those things were pretty rare. He realized it wasn't easy. He'd killed a dozen elites, and had just finally gotten one. Then he saw someone jumping from the trees. He saw the claws sticking out from her side. To his surprise, the beautiful lady he was chasing earlier already had 3. He got motivated not to fall behind. He unleashed a water gun barrage. Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, he was perched on a cliff. Then he spotted someone. It was Chun-Hui. She reported that she'd already collected 6 armor-piercing bear claws. So, if he didn't have enough, he could get some from her. He appreciated the thought, but it wasn't necessary. He activated Advanced Pay, Armor-Piercing Spear. She watched him in awe. A polearm with a tremendous aura materialized in his hand. In another setting, 3 water jets fired simultaneously, hitting the bear on its head, chest and gut. When it fell, Yuping collected the claws. He was happy to have his 9th claw. He only needed 1 more. He checked the scoreboard, which showed the current collection progress. Wang Ping was first, followed by Zhang Jishir, then Huang Xianwei. He Xian wasn't in a good place. Yuping realized that He, who was supposedly brute-forcing the extra-hard bonus monster, was totally washed up and the rumors were just hype. He was determined to clear the exam this time. Suddenly, a warning that He had synthesized the armor-piercing spear came out. Yuping was surprised. Meanwhile, Qianhui was surprised that they could advance pay for that too. She was impressed with her master. He saw the guy with the wind magic from Mo's family and thought he would come in handy. He had checked, and it was open source, so there was no conflict on patents, and he could advance pay for it. And that's exactly what he did. He advance paid for wind control, and it was confirmed by the system. The scoring for Subject 2 was based on how much damage each of them dealt to the boss fiend. So he planned that after he got the boss fiend's health bar down, Qianhui would jump in and land the finishing blow. In that way, they would both get the highest scores. She confirmed that she got it. So when He was ready, he jumped down the cliff. The height was quite a distance, but he was able to spot the bear fiend. The bear fiend sensed him. It slammed its paws together, unleashing a formidable attack. He immediately felt the powerful gust of wind. He was now almost upon his target. With eyes locked on, he coiled his legs and pushed off. He plunged fearlessly right into the fray. As he soared through the air, he shone with brilliant light. The massive bear could only watch him, and the moment he touched down near it, its colossal body was utterly blasted away. Our boy wasted no time at all, immediately swinging his mighty spear. And that attack ignited a massive explosion. In the chaotic aftermath, the bear was completely blinded, losing all vision. The spear shredded through the dust and smoke, and was aimed directly for the bear's chest. But just in time, it managed to block it with its paws. But then he activated the dark nether lightning art. Our boy cleverly employed the polearm to channel the lightning energy to the other end, and delivering a devastating shock to the bear. The bear fiend convulsed from the powerful current, but he wasn't done yet. He then activated wind control, unleashing the wind treading stride. While the spear remained impaled within the bear, he sent it flying backward with incredible speed. It was a truly destructive maneuver. Yuping watched the whole spectacle from a distance, absolutely fuming that his kill was being stolen. Meanwhile, Modin still remained unconscious. Eventually, he slowly regained consciousness. He never expected to be knocked out cold. He was shocked when he took in his surroundings. The entire area was in utter chaos. The bear was now cornered by the man he had just met. He then continued to inflict even more damage upon the bear. He relentlessly swung his spear without pause, delivering blows with such immense power and speed. It looked as if a very tornado had formed around him, continuously shredding through the bear fiend. He was entirely focused on his relentless attacks, each strike so incredibly powerful that it tore a hole straight through the trunk of a tree, standing right behind the bear, causing it to fall, and he was finally finished with his onslaught. Amazingly, the bear was still in one piece, having drastically shrunk its body to survive. Yuping realized it couldn't block or dodge the onslaught, so it shrunk itself to become far more mobile. He was eager to see how he would handle this new development. If he couldn't pull it off, he planned to step in and snatch the prize for himself. He had no trouble striking the bear, and despite its smaller size, he grazed its forearms when trying to block his spear. The bear then braced for a counterattack, and he parried its fist with his spear's handle. It might be smaller, but its attack power was still insane. It formed condensed chi armor on its arms, something it hadn't used before. He figured the skill must be incomplete, likely unable to cover its entire massive body. He also noticed the double layer of physical and magical defense. Now he understood why the instructions stated that. It greatly increases the probability of passing, but doesn't guarantee it. He created some distance between them, but the bear lunged straight for him. He spun his spear, preparing his turn-back thrust. The bear was startled by the incoming attack, conjuring a golden shield on its chest. He used an advanced ability to access the skill. Pierce throat. His spear tore through the bear's throat, sending blood spurting everywhere. The bear crashed through several trees, and when he approached, it was impaled against the cliff face. Still clutching his spear, he struggled to bring its health bar down to half, but with the remaining portion of the bar, it was enough for them to pass. Once Chunhui finishes it off, he called for her to come quickly, but Madun snuck up behind him. Madun planned to steal the kill. He unleashed his wind control, Windblade, and someone could be heard screaming. But after Madun's attack, the air cleared, and he realized he'd missed. Tianhui had taken the bear airborne with her. She then attacked it using wind control, demon slash, and the split strike. The bear demon was eliminated. She used object control and wind control, a combination unrecognizable to others. Madun was thoroughly annoyed that so many knew how to use wind control. He thought those lowly people, they weren't worthy of wielding the same advanced magic techniques as the illustrious Mo family. He then accused Chunhui of totally taking advantage of him. He felt Chunhui stole his kill, believing the remaining health bar on the bear was rightfully his. Chunhui, however, just mocked him by pointing out he conveniently forgot to mention falling asleep. This, understandably, infuriated him. Mo then declared that out of all the examinees, the two students from No. 6 High School were clearly the lowest class, with no sect background whatsoever. He couldn't find any connection linking them to any prominent, influential figure. So he figured if he just offed 2 cultivation nobodies, the examiner wouldn't even bat an eye. Xianhui watched him spew his words and paid particular attention to the split, disgusting corner of his mouth. It eerily reminded her of Shoichi. Without a shred of hesitation, she activated her execution line and swiftly closed the distance between them. But then, quickly reminded her not to kill other examinees. Inside the examination hall, Mo in turn found it utterly hilarious that a low-class person dared to try and kill him, a certified genius like himself. He instantly deployed a wind control windshield, but she still slammed right into the windshield. Mo then infused it with even more of his magic power, making its defensive effect supposedly indestructible. But Qianhui astonishingly tore right through it. It was as if she'd simply teleported inside the shield. Mo immediately realized he was utterly screwed. His jaw dropped. He stammered, asking how she got in. Xianhui simply sighed, then nonchalantly twirled her sword, and swiftly struck him hard in the stomach. He started falling at an incredibly rapid pace, before slamming into trees and crashing onto the ground. He approached her, admitting she genuinely scared him. He genuinely thought she was actually going to skin him, but luckily, she'd used the blunt side of the sword. She knew that there were invigilators watching them in the examination hall, and killing other examinees would certainly cause trouble. But she was glad to have memorized the execution line. After that intense encounter, the mock exam finally ended. The final rankings showed Hei was the top one, followed by Chunhui, then Yuping. Chunhui told Hei she only had 6 armor-piercing claws. She was 4 short. Hei quickly assured her it was fine, since he'd go fight for them himself. Immediately, Yuping offered some of his own to them, flashing a wide grin. Hei accepted, then asked if Yuping really didn't want them, considering they were such valuable weapon materials. Yuping explained that, with Hei and Chunhui dominating the scoreboard, he had no need to keep the quest items. What's more, his family certainly wasn't lacking weapon materials. He might as well just give them away. Afterwards, he invited Hei to chat outside the examination hall. Hei, thoroughly creeped out, quickly declared he was straight. The system then notified him that all 10 armor-piercing bear claws had been collected. The prerequisite items for the armor-piercing spear had been collected. Soon after, they met outside once more. Since Yuping saw them as rare talents, he began to elaborate on his motives. He told them that whether they chose to go to college or join society later and become a social animal, the ultimate goal was always to join a large sect. Normally, modern sects wouldn't directly recruit high school students, but he presented them with a once-in-a-century opportunity that could save them 50 years of detours. He was the son of the sect leader of the body-forging sect, one of the 10 most powerful sects of their time. He was destined to be the sect's successor in the future, of course, and he was extending his sincere invitation to them. Hei, ever so straightforwardly, told him they already had a sect. That revelation utterly petrified him. Hei explained that Chunhui was his disciple, and Chunhui quickly confirmed he was her master. He was utterly disappointed, especially after delivering such a passionate speech. He then asked for the name of their sect. Chunhui had also been meaning to ask the name of their sect, encouraging him to say it out loud. Hei, meanwhile, was sweating buckets. Turns out, he'd completely forgotten to register the sect. Upon hearing that, Chunhui's soul practically left her body, and Yuping burst into uncontrollable laughter. He burst into uproarious laughter. Following that incident, Hei headed to the comprehensive sect office. Modern spotted him through the camera feed. He was sporting a neck and arm brace, a result of his previous injuries, and seeing Hei only fueled his fury. Hei stepped inside the building and overheard people discussing how smooth the registration process had been. He was directed to Gate 7. The office clerk then inquired about his business. He declared his intention to register a new sect. The clerk then asked for his name. He provided his full name, Hei Shin, a name that made the office clerk go utterly pale. The office clerk then asked if he held a recommendation letter from a major sect. Hei, of course, had none. Subsequently, he was then asked if he had reached the Golden Core realm. He replied he was on the verge of it, but the office clerk quickly concluded that answer meant a no. He was then asked if he possessed a sect leader challenge certificate, which he didn't even know existed. It was explained that he first had to enter the designated secret realm as a sect leader, complete the challenge, and acquire the sect leader challenge certificate. Hei stubbornly insisted that the office clerk had to let him register the sect first so he could be a sect leader to complete the challenge. But the office clerk remained rude and utterly firm that he absolutely had to complete the challenge first before he could even hope to register. Hei was furious, even as the office clerk stood firm. But beneath the firm facade, he was gripped by intense nervousness. So, he felt a wave of relief when he finally left. He truly believed he was about to unleash chaos. It was truly frightening for him, given he was a 10th layer condensation realm cultivator. Suddenly, a voice spoke up, claiming there was no need to fear such a lowlife. So it was his cousin Modern then declared, claiming his 10th layer status meant nothing. Condensation realm, when he still lost to him during their second mock exam. But the office clerk immediately doubted that claim, seeing that Modu had this neck brace and an injured arm. It speaks on who truly almost lost. but he decided to give his cousin a thumbs up and agree with him then. He shared that. The first 2 rules alone were enough to block him, but the third one normally. The applicant would have to pass a prelim review, get a temporary sect leader certificate, do the challenge, and come back for a final review to get the official one. But he changed the rules specifically for Hay, to throw him out that way he can never start a sect. And Moden was pleased with that, because certainly Hay didn't see that coming. The whole registration office was actually his family's turf since Hay crossed him. He planned to make his life a living hell forever. That night in Hay's room, Hay asked Qianhui what were the prerequisites for breaking through to the Golden Core realm. She explained that he had to be at the 10th layer, condensation realm, which he already was. And he also needs to take a blazing flame, mushroom, and chill bone herb. Both were super rare herbs. He had to go to a high level secret realm to harvest them. He searched online on which sect leader challenge locations also have the herbs, so he could finish it in one shot. He found one wherein it was a secret leader challenging a secret realm with records of both blazing flame mushroom and the chill bone herb. But the realm was in another sect territory, and the only way in was to join their party. Qianhui read the requirements for joining the party. It was posted that they needed one sect leader who has already completed the challenge. Meanwhile, the members were bored of waiting, but eventually they found one, and Hay arrived. And Zhao Qihong, the female in the party, couldn't believe that their sect leader, Su Jian, grabbed a student who was obviously unqualified. You being the vice sect leader of the Qingxin sect was just silent, they asked. Hey, if he really read the requirements of the party. Our boy just confirmed it. They presented him with an official sect leader token. This was required for joining, especially as a student. They naturally assumed he wouldn't possess one, but he confidently told them otherwise. They figured he was just messing with them, because there was simply no way a high school student could ever obtain such a thing. He then presented his official sect token, showing them the gleaming, brand new token, fresh off the press, straight from his hands. Jin couldn't believe it. Moments later, though, Jin proceeded to make their grand entrance. He cleaved a rift right through the cliff face. As the cave opened, they wasted no time entering. He realized this was no ordinary hidden entrance. It required a special incantation to unlock. Such realms are vital assets for any sect, so they couldn't simply let just anyone waltz in. He was curious if it was truly rare for a high school student to establish their own sect. Jin replied that it's become incredibly rare lately, but back then they could easily apply, as long as they reached the condensation realm. He cited the Ing sect as a prime example. Their sect leader was none other than Rugasaki Sho, who had just reached the condensation realm when he applied and was approved back in the day. But these days, the competition is absolutely insane, so they've significantly raised the barrier to entry. In principle, that means they won't approve anyone below the Golden Core realm, unless, of course, there's a recommendation letter from a major sect. That's the only way to snag a special exemption. But no way would a normal high school student be in the Golden Core realm. So, he assumed Jin must have secured a recommendation letter from a major sect, which means he's got some serious backing. Our boy just casually laughed it off. Then, shifting gears, Qihong reminded them they still had to help her pass the sect leader challenge. This time, Jin assured her he would make her pass. Bing chimed in, saying she's with 2 total studs, so there is absolutely nothing to be scared of. He'd figured it was just a 2-man carry, after all. Now it all perfectly made sense to him. The realm only required 3 people, yet they insisted on bringing 1 more. It felt like they were roping him in as the 3rd. Meanwhile, Hay had pending missions. First up, the advance payment for the sect leader's token, his Golden Core realm major sect recommendation letter, and the impermanence ruin. As for Feigned King Core, they were all at 1/0. The second mission involved an advance payment, this time for the Golden Core realm. He already had 1/10th layer condensation realm, but showed 1/0 for both Blazing Flame, Mushroom, and Chill Bone Herb. The final mission was the advance pay for wind control. He had 1/0 comprehended mantra and 10/3 practice of wind control. Then, the system notified him that the Golden Core realm had been advance paid, which meant he could assign his post-payment missions to his disciple. This was perfect, because Qianhui also needed to finish her wind control training. He assigned her to do just that. While he was doing that, Qihong asked Jin about the outsider's strength. Jin saw Hei as dumb, so he doubted his strength. Jin decided to switch to an intersect mind voice. He assured them the outsider was just cannon fodder, so he wouldn't mess up their plan. Eventually, they reached an area with 3 paths. Qihong was confused. That Bing seemed to be seeing this for the first time, when he was supposed to have cleared the area before. Bing told her it was called the Impermanence Ruin because it changes randomly every time they enter, making things utterly unpredictable. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense as a sect leader challenge. He pointed out that if it were such a waste, then she wouldn't need 2 sect leaders like them to carry her. Then Jin used divine sense to determine what lay on those 3 paths. Jin told Hei he'd scouted it for him and assigned him to the middle path, which was the easiest. He was trying to make it seem like they were doing him a favor, while they took some loss. Hei simply entered the middle path, but that was all part of their sinister plan. When he left, they called him gullible. Their plan always works thanks to suckers like him. Bing Jin and Qihong chose a different path. Qihong couldn't help but wonder just how much tougher the path they'd taken was compared to their own. Jin replied, the difference is like night and day. Jin even sensed numerous auras he'd never encountered on the middle path. This meant fiends weren't just dangerous, but there were hordes of them too. That Hei's sect leader he assaulted, his token must have come from connections. And what's more, they judged him to have 0 combat experience. This led them to believe he'd never gotten into a situation like this before, so he was probably pissing his pants. Meanwhile, he just continued walking until he sensed something. An arrow shot at him. He swung his arm to deflect it, then traced exactly where it came from. He used his wind control, sky-breaking palm, and unleashed it directly at the attacker. It shattered the walls, revealing an evil-looking fiend. Its body was sliced in half by the attack. It was a Shadow Stalker Archer, 5th layer of the Condensation Realm, and it had been eliminated. He was impressed with this fiend, who could turn invisible. He almost didn't see the arrow coming, but luckily, advancing to the Golden Core realm had made his perception of demonic aura far stronger. He sensed something again, and another arrow was shot. Then, he unleashed an attack towards the attacker's location. The wind was so powerful, it chopped off the fiend's body. It had become quiet until Hei's leg was attacked. Another shadow fiend appeared, emerging from the ground, trying to cut Hei's leg, but he was able to deflect it. He wondered if it thought he wouldn't sense it. From up close, he pushed his spear into it. It wasn't able to move. He swung his spear again and turned its body into small pieces. He sensed another fiend in front, so he tried to stab it, but there was nothing. He swept his spear from left to right. Then he gave it a mighty twirl. The spear spun rapidly with him at its center, slamming into the fiends. Heads were instantly lopped off from that attack. And just like that, their bodies were shredded into tiny pieces, blown away by the wind. Suddenly, something targeted him from behind. He swiftly twirled his spear, deflecting a volley of arrows. He's growing annoyed by their relentless assault, one after another. He's furious with them, since all they do is hide and shoot from the shadows. He unleashed a devastating attack that shattered the very ground beneath them. Then, the wind coalesced into a small tornado, engulfing a wide area. But the shadow fiends managed to hold their ground. Even though it was a terrifying, huge gale, they realized it didn't inflict any real damage. This made them underestimate the cultivator, but he did that intentionally just so he could see them. They were shocked when he suddenly appeared behind them. They immediately let loose an arrow. He unleashed another attack. He conjured a giant hand that squashed the fiend into pieces. The other fiends, hidden behind the pillar, unleashed a barrage of arrows. He spun his spear furiously, deflecting those arrows. While he was fighting, however, a mysterious creature watched him from afar. It was like a human-shaped paper cutout. Jin was using it to spy on him. Qihong wondered if that idiot was still alive. Their original plan was to use him as mere cannon fodder, to scout out the types of fiends on that path, and what moves they had. That way, they could plan their strategy before diving in. But to his surprise, the kid was having an easy time. He told Bing about the sudden change in their plans. He decided not to fight the Fiend King himself. Instead, he wanted to lure the Fiend King towards that idiot's path. Bing then summoned his mighty axe weapon and immediately hurled it towards something unseen. The axe hit its target. That creature burst into flames from the 2 holes in its body. The loud sound and the ensuing commotion instantly caught Hei's attention. I bet our boy already knew that. They were simply toying with him. Thank you all so much for watching. Please go watch this next Giga Chad video, and I'll catch you all next time. You can also support the channel by joining the Summon Club, our awesome membership. You can also support us by just liking the video and being absolutely awesome.